Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. It's an extraordinary revelation and development on this story involving the Epstein files and all the allegations that have been swirling around about Andrew over the many years, from Virginia Giuffre, now sadly deceased, and since then, and certainly what's been contained in the Epstein files as released in the last few weeks. But the police have arrived at Sandringham Estate this morning, where Andrew has made his new home. It's his 66th birthday today. What a birthday present that is. He has been arrested by the police. Of course, the brother of the current king, the second son of our late Queen Elizabeth. This is an extraordinary development. Those of us who've been talking an awful lot about establishment cover-ups and lack of, shall we say, interest by the police in what are very, very serious allegations against Andrew. Perhaps pleased that that pressure has finally been put on the police, and they have done the job of actually looking into these issues seriously. Must bear in mind, of course, that the Prince has not been charged with any crime at this point, and he has always denied any wrongdoing in relation to any of the allegations about him. We'll give you more on that. We'll talk to you about that throughout the show, but I'm just being told that the arrest has been on suspicion of misconduct in public office. This, of course, relates to those Epstein file allegations and the documents that, if they are true, would suggest that he had, it is alleged, passed on basically what was confidential government information when he was the UK trade envoy for this country for 10 years to Jeffrey Epstein for Jeffrey Epstein's financial gain.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Two minutes past 6. Wakey, wakey, rise and shine. Welcome to Talk Breakfast. Mark Dolan with you for a very big 4 hours. And breaking this morning, palace officials are thought to be drawing up plans with the government to remove Andrew Mountbatten Windsor from the line of succession. Now, this follows a second day of police searches on the Windsor estate. But given the fact that he's been found guilty of no crime, and given the fact that there are some very rich and powerful people in America who seem to have walked away from the Epstein scandal unscathed, has Andrew suffered enough? He's lost his titles, he's lost his income, he's lost his dignity, his reputation. He's shortly not going to be 8th in line to the throne. Has he paid the price already? Meanwhile, the Prime Minister refuses to allow Donald Trump to use UK air bases to strike Iran. Has Starmer torn up the special relationship? Call me old-fashioned, but in my view, if the Americans ask for something, the answer is always yes. The United States is our #1 political, economic and military ally. And as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to our relationship with America, it's a blank cheque. But do you agree? 0344 499 1000. Should we help Donald Trump to strike Iran, which, as we know, is a wicked authoritarian regime? Or would it be Iraq 2.0? Let me know your thoughts. Oh dear, another Labour government scandal, as the Defence Minister stands accused of misleading MPs in the House of Commons and therefore the British public over the Chagos deal, suggesting that we faced a legal quagmire very, very shortly if we don't hand over that sovereign territory. Is this deal dead in the water? Our campaign to keep the Chagos Islands continues apace. And a brave police officer tells a group of British Muslims that quoting the Bible on the street in their neighbourhood is free speech. Is there hope for British policing? My phone number is 03444991000. Tommy's on the phones today and he's on excellent form. He's going to be making me a cup of tea in just a minute because I know how to live. You can text the word TALK in your message to 87222 or leave us a voice note. We love a voice note. Now, whatever you're up to, could be the beginning of your weekend, and there you are, slumbered in your bed, thinking about what you're going to get up to today. Or you might be on your way to work or at the tail end of a shift, in which case we salute your contribution to the unstoppable powerhouse that is the great British economy. So what do you think about this, folks? Has Andrew suffered enough? Is it too much of a punishment beating now? Let me know your thoughts. Delighted to have you listening on the radio, DAB+, in-app and online, but this is a TV show as well. So if you'd like to watch my amazing guests and see Dolan's Dispatch live at 9 a.m, which might get me cancelled good, then head over to YouTube, search Talking Up, we pop. As the saying goes, Engineer Dave, let's talk. Got the dream team with me today. I'm delighted to say that big Ryan Thrussell has joined us this morning because Dean Spencer, our executive producer, is in rehab drying out. So I'm delighted to have lovely Ryan with us. And I'll tell you, I love Dean, but you're going to find the show is just a little bit of an extra level. Do you know what I mean? Dean is like you know, he's a footballer, get you a few goals. Ryan, this is Ronaldo, okay? This is Ronaldo. So you'll notice the show will be better today. And I love Dean, you know, but he's not perfect. And we wish him well in his lengthy recovery after too many Guinnesses last night. No, I'm delighted to say that we've got a busy show. Dixon is directing our TV output. Tommy's on the phones. Dave, the engineer, pressing the buttons. I've done it again. His name is Davis. Daily Mirror front page. Epstein scandal thrown out. The disgraced former Prince Andrew faces being stripped of his position as the 8th in line to the throne. The government plans to seal his exit from the royal family as police launched 2 probes yesterday. Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor's former close protection officers are being quizzed over his relationship with late paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. The Metropolitan Police is also working with US counterparts to establish whether London airports were used to traffic girls on the financier's Lolita Express. Now, I've got a couple of things to say here. I'm no fan of Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, and my royal sources tell me that he always has been and always will be a very arrogant and entitled man. Not very intelligent either, completely full of himself, completely spoiled. He's brought disrepute on the royal family. I do not admire this guy, but he is facing such dog's abuse at the moment. He's lost his titles. He's got no discernible income. He has the indignity now of his brother paying for his accommodation on the Sandringham estate. He's divorced. His daughters are barely talking to him. I suspect, by the way, at 6:08 on a Saturday morning, that he's a safeguarding risk. I don't think it's impossible, Ryan, that Andrew is in a dark place at the moment. I make no apologies for saying this. Here I am on Talk, the home of free speech, the home of common sense. So I'm not going to get cancelled for this. Let me tell you that I think there's a worrying chance that Andrew could do something stupid. And may God forbid that he does that. May God forbid. Because notwithstanding the allegations that face him, all of which he denies, I suspect that he's not a well man mentally. And I think it's a concern. And I think he needs to be kept on the planet, and I do think, therefore, it's the duty of his brother to have him accommodated, to have him fed and watered, and maybe for somebody from the royal household to go and sit with him every day and play poker or whatever, watch daytime telly, listen to Talk. He might learn something. It actually might be good for his intellect, Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, if he listens to Talk Breakfast, if he listens to Julia and Jeremy and Kevin and Peter and Alex. By the way, you should never list Talk presenters because you'll always forget one and then you get a dirty stare in the canteen. You get bump into Petrie Hotskins and she's like, what about me? Am I chopped liver? But honestly, I'm a bit concerned for his welfare. I don't care about his feelings, Ryan. I don't care about his reputation. Of course not. What he stands accused of is horrific, and actually for me he's done enough that is proven to be a complete disgrace, which is to befriend a known paedophile and to stay in touch with him after he was found guilty of and imprisoned for those crimes. So you don't have the defence of I knew nothing, given the fact that you stayed best pals with him after that conviction. Call me old-fashioned, Dave, but if you've got a mate called Big Steve and you have a few beers with him a couple of times a week and you play squash or something, right? Big Steve, you're a good friend of yours, known him for years. And then it turns out Steve spends 6 months in clink for trafficking underage girls for sex. At that point, you perhaps, the old WhatsApp messages to Steve, ease up a little bit. It might not be that you meet Steve anymore because of what he's done. So we know that he's a man of poor judgment. But what about Bill Gates, who it's reported in the Epstein files tried to drug his wife with antibiotics because of the sexually transmitted diseases that he had reportedly allegedly picked up from Russian girls? Where's his police investigation? Why isn't he in exile, in disgrace? He's cancelled a speech on AI recently. Well, big deal. I mean, that's not exactly cancel culture, is it? What about Bill Clinton? What about the US president, who is named in the Epstein files? So there are rich people, powerful people, mostly in the United States, who seem to have evaded justice and escaped censure, whilst old Randy Andy is hung, drawn and quartered, and at 11 minutes past 6. Let me know what you think, but I'm worried for his safety. And I think he's a safeguarding risk. And the reason why I'm happy to say that and use this platform to say is A, because it's what I think, that's my commitment to you, is that if it's in my head, I'll say it. It's the easiest job in the world, this one, because the red light goes on courtesy of Dave. Occasionally I put the microphone in the right place and I just say what I think. That's why it's easy. And I'm going to say to you that I'm a bit worried about Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. That photograph of him, Ryan, slumped with his head back in the back of the limo. By the way, what an idiot. I mean, I agree with Neil Wallace, the brilliant former newspaper editor who was with me in the studio yesterday. He said that this guy's learnt nothing. It's like, if you're having your day in court, you're dignified, you sit up straight and you face the world. You don't shirk in the back of the limo, because I think he's got no backbone. I think he's a very, very cowardly man, as well as being resolutely thick. But he's a human being and he's been found guilty of no crimes. And I would just be very concerned that he's in a dark place. And I just worry what could happen at this moment in time, because the guy's got nothing to live for. His daughters are barely talking to him. He's got major financial problems. His brother feeds him, waters him and accommodates him. He's a disgrace. And he could have years and years and years of these legal proceedings. So I think it's terribly important that someone is there to keep an eye on him, is all I would say. Not forgive, but just to take care of this human being who has been found guilty of no crimes as of late, is all I'm saying. But am I being too empathetic? Have I lost the plot? 613, let me know, 0344 499 1000. FT weekend. Trump pledges fresh tariffs after Liberation Day levies ruled illegal. Now, this does not matter to you and I. This is about US tariffs. I will say it's a major setback for Donald Trump, because what I've always said about the Donald is that whilst he talks a complete lot of nonsense, and he's such an idiot a lot of the time, I judge people by their actions, not their words. He's been an effective president. He's probably the best president when it comes to foreign policy in the last 100 years. Brokered multiple peace deals, including, of course, most notably Gaza. I think he'll get a deal on Ukraine this year. He's dealt with Iran and continues to deal with Iran, with potential airstrikes coming, which we should be supporting. This is a guy that doesn't like war. He doesn't like people being killed. He thinks that war is bad for business. He's a real estate entrepreneur. He doesn't like buildings blown up. He likes to make them, not blow them up. So I think, oddly, and you'll laugh at this at 14 minutes past 6 in the morning, but I think it's a humanitarian. Donald Trump is a humanitarian. He doesn't like war. It's just not a thing that works for him. He's transactional. He likes money. He likes real estate. He likes gold. He likes opulent furniture. He likes mahogany and silver and all of that rubbish. So the bottom line is that's great. The foreign stuff, I think, has been outstanding. He's closed the southern border in the United States. We can only dream of such a policy here. 12 million people entered America illegally in the Biden years, right? 4 years, 12 million people crossed the border. You don't know who they are. Some of them will be fine. They'll be great people trying to make a better life. Others will be murderers and terrorists and paedophiles and all the rest of it. The problem with illegal immigration is you don't know which is which. That is the problem. He closes the southern border. Absolutely spectacular. Can you imagine if Donald Trump was the UK Prime Minister? How many minutes would it take him to stop the boats? It would be by the end of the sentence of, I will stop the boats. He gets to the end of that sentence, the boats are gone. The boats are gone. Donald Trump is UK Prime Minister. The boats stop in seconds. Nigel Farage said, I'll stop the boats in 2 weeks. Farage will stop them in 4 minutes. We can only dream. So he talks a lot of nonsense, but policy-wise, I've got to say it's impressive. The economy's been growing as well. They had 4% growth in the last quarter. We can't manage that in a year, thanks to Rachel from Accounts. However, big setback, which is the tariffs are deemed illegal by the Supreme Court. It's a problem politically for Trump, and I'll tell you for why. Because the Supreme Court is packed with right-wing Republican judges. So therefore, it's his own side that have essentially done a job on him. And the issue you've got is that those tariffs were Donald Trump's way of recalibrating the US economy so that other countries selling into America would pay their fair share, because the terms of trade for America have been absolutely awful, stacked against the United States. So he's tried to level that, and it was going to be the big legacy of his presidency. Well, the Supreme Court said no. He might have to write a check to refund some of those tariffs. He's fought back by saying, OK, 10% tariffs on every country, but this is a provable setback for the US president. Let's see where we go from here. The Daily Telegraph, Andrew faces axe from royal succession, and MPs demand Mandelson answers over former prince's trade role. Trump goes harder on tariffs after Supreme Court ban is the other story in the Telegraph. And Healey misled MPs over Chagos deal. A Labour government minister misleading MPs and the public and being dishonest? Surely not. Say it isn't so. The Defence Secretary has been accused by Conservative MPs of misleading Parliament by saying Britain faced legal threats over the Chagos Islands. John Healey said in May that the government faced a legal challenge within weeks if it did not agree to the handover to Mauritius of the islands, including Diego Garcia. But the government has now admitted there is an exception to UN maritime laws for disputes concerning military activities. This government, in my humble opinion, is pathologically dishonest. They just default to lying. And I think it's because the fish rots from the head, and it's Starmer who's a lawyer. What's the problem with a lawyer becoming Prime Minister? Well, lawyers will adopt a position that they're paid to have. The best lawyers have no opinions about anything. They got no values. They got no principles. Let me explain. You get someone and he's called Ted and he murders his wife. He just literally, kitchen knife into her heart. Good night, Vienna, right? The missus is done for. And this is Ted. The cops get there. There's a knife. It goes into a clear bag. He's absolutely banged to rights. But he denies that he was responsible. He says it was self-defense. What a lawyer will do is take money to defend Ted. And that lawyer knows that Ted did it. We have the CCTV and we've got the bloody dagger and we've got this and that and the other. We've got witness statements. And a lawyer's job is to go in and say, Ted did not do it, and take a bullet for Ted. And that's what our Prime Minister is. So he'll just have a position and be like, what do I think today? Tell me what I think today. So, for example, just before the election, he thought the taxes should go up by 6 billion and he put them up by 70 billion, 70. So you go from 6 billion, we're going to raise taxes, to 70 billion. He didn't think we could afford the two-child benefit cap being lifted. He gets into government, he lifts it. So the guy is just, it's doublespeak. And I think it's seeped through into all of the government ministers, including the Defence Secretary, John Healey. who essentially has tried to do Project Fear with Chagos and said, look, if we don't give away the Chagos Islands, we're going to be sued till kingdom come. Well, I've got another thought for you at 20 minutes past 6 on a Saturday morning, which is, you ready for this? 2 words, sue us. Sue us. Could I care less? Bring it on. I want Britain to become an international pariah. I really do. I want to destroy our international reputation. I'll tell you for why. Because preserving our international reputation involves following the ECHR, which makes it impossible to deport murderers, terrorists and rapists, right? So we're a nice country because we're in the ECHR and we can't get rid of these terrible people. So the reason why we're going to give away sovereign territory is to be nice, to be part of the global order, to respect international law. Well, the law is an ass, and I don't care how unpopular we get, because it strikes me now that being liked internationally equates to not serving the national interest. And therefore, I'm quite happy to be unpopular. And the first thing I would do is I would fight to save the Chagos Islands. And what I would also do, folks, is I would happily pay the lawyers' fees for the next 100 years to defend the Chagos Islands. And if it costs us, are you ready for this? If it costs us £1 million a week to keep Chagos, I'll write that cheque. That's why I pay my taxes, to preserve the territorial boundaries of this country. Chagos is ours. Mauritius has never owned it. America don't want the deal, right? They don't want us to give away Chagos, and China do. What does that tell you? Whose side are we on? The world's gone mad. 6:21, Talk Breakfast. My star guest in the studio next with more front pages.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk Breakfast with Mark Dolan with you until 10 a.m. You won't want to miss Dolan's Dispatch at 9 o'clock. Got some great guests coming up, and with me in the studio now is the fabulous, brilliant Paul Cox. Good morning, Paul.
Fabulous and brilliant. Thank you very much, Mark. How you doing?
Comedian, broadcaster, entrepreneur and entertainer and man about town. That's what you are.
Lover, some would say.
Well, I've seen the photographs and I will say you're blessed. You're very blessed biologically. We're asking this morning, has Andrew suffered enough? Here's a voice note from Pete.
Regarding Andrew, I think he should be treated like everybody else. If this was like your next door neighbour and you found out that he'd been messing about and sexually assaulting girls, despite the fact that he denies it, he would be hung, drawn and quartered. So why shouldn't Andrew be hung, drawn and quartered? You know, at the end of the day, you know, he's abused his position, he's brought disrepute on the royal family, and let's face it, when he goes to prison, it'll be in a nice little private sector. It won't be like if I did anything, I'd be put in with general population, you know, and God knows what would happen to me. But he won't, he'll be protected all the time. So, you know, what's good for the goose is good for the gander in my eyes.
Thank you for that, Pete. And you're, of course, right to stress that Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor denies all allegations that face him. But I take your point. It's very considered. Sean in Gloucester, top of the morning, Mark. I'm totally convinced that Keith Stalin has lied to Trump over the Chagos Islands and is doing everything he can to destroy any relationship that we have with the US by denying permission to use our bases. I used to think he was useless. Now I think he's dangerous, says Sean. Sharon, good morning, Mark. I love the shirt this morning. Well, if you don't know what I'm wearing, why don't you head over to YouTube, search Talk, watch the live thing, and up we pop. Sharon says he has not paid the price, Andrew, not suffered enough for what he's done. And then what took the police so long to arrest him? That's Sharon, not happy. Andrew is trade envoy. Did he ever have to sign the Official Secrets Act? Did he have to sign an NDA detailing what information was not to be given to third parties? And for now, Christina says, good morning, Mark. Starmer is a fool. It frightens me that he's supporting the Iranian regime by not backing America while their ordinary people in Iran are being hurt. He's backing the wrong people as usual. Get to more of your feedback shortly. Paul Cox, has Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor suffered enough?
Well, he's definitely suffered. I think for a man that's... by the way, this is just to add balance, because it's important to stress this, and this is a man who's not been convicted of anything yet. So by that standard, yes, it is getting to a point where he has been under tremendous pressure, but probably rightly so, I would say. If you are in that position of authority and for so many years you've probably taken advantage of it, then you deserve to be held to account, as anyone should be. And look, anecdotally, the people I know that have met him have said that he's not a particularly nice guy, full of arrogance. And I'd imagine there's quite a few people out there that are feeling like he's got his just desserts at the moment. I don't think that the process is going to be the punishment enough, though. I think if what we're seeing within the Epstein files in terms of in high office giving away secrets, I think there's a huge issue for him there. I think the sexual impropriety, there's a lot of stuff going on there, but I'm not sure that's what we're definitely not discussing that right now, but I'm not sure that's going to be the thing that scuppers him. I think it's going to be this dealing in information that is secret, that is important to the UK, and handing it over. If he has done anything like that in his position as an envoy, his position as an ex-prince, a member of the royal family, then he's going to be in serious trouble.
Well, it's got echoes of Al Capone, hasn't it? The famous gangster who was ultimately appropriated not through murder and selling drugs and narcotics and all the rest of it. They got him on his taxes.
Yes,
and could that be the equivalent for Andrew, where Andrew stands accused of trafficking young women for sex, potentially underage women? He denies those allegations, but is it possible that those things are very hard to prove, whereas what you've got with the envoy stuff is a digital paper trail? You've got emails. Dear Jeffrey, here's the latest from my meeting with Vietnam.
And I would say that he's not the brightest penny either. And there will be email trails. You know, this is someone. The trouble with arrogance is you put yourself above absolutely everybody else. You don't think you're ever going to be held to account. So you just become completely, you know, without any sort of rules for yourself at all. So you just carry on as if you're always gonna, with impunity,
like a sort of recklessness.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. So I think that if this is true, and if there is evidence in the Epstein files, and they were to compare it with what's in the former Prince Andrew's email trail at Buck House, then I think they're probably going to find something.
Well, that's right. And what I found very interesting and instructive yesterday, Paul, is my assumption, which we know assumption is the mother of all disaster.
Yes.
But my assumption was that if he was done for sharing the minutes of bilateral meetings with other governments, and sending that stuff to Epstein, that it would be the equivalent of a white-collar crime, which is therefore a slap on the wrist, 18 months suspended. I had a top lawyer on the show yesterday. He said, not at all. He said, if he's guilty of what he stands accused of, he goes to jail.
Yes, and a maximum term of life, by the way. Because it's such an important position.
It's national security, it's our economy.
Exactly. NDAs are kind of almost negligent at this point. You're signing the Official Secrets Act at the highest possible level. So it's treason. You know, it's close to treason. You will get in serious, serious trouble if you go... Yeah, it's insider trading as well. That's why Epstein wants... Epstein needs information in order to have something over somebody, to make money for himself or to make money for his clients. And if... when all this is done and dusted, should he be found guilty of anything, we need to identify why. Why was he doing this? What was in it for him? Well, because it's such a high risk. You can see what's in it for Epstein. I still can't see what's in it for Andrew, unless, of course, all the other stuff is true, and therefore he was doing that as a quid pro quo.
Well, exactly. I mean, the allegations would be that what was in it for Andrew, two things: money and sex. Now, he'll deny that very, very vociferously. But what we have in relation to this story is allegations of young Russian girls, hot Romanians, flown into Stansted, 90 flights in the course of a decade, coming into Stansted, private jet, which is not subject to the normal checks and balances of a Ryanair flight from Alicante, sadly.
No.
And then you've got the suggestion that young women dined at Buckingham Palace in the company of Epstein and as the guest of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. So my suggestion, and I'm so happy for Andrew to walk away a free man having disproved these claims, innocent till proven guilty, but you know, these young women, and then cash. Don't forget, Sarah Ferguson is perennially bankrupt, and there is some evidence that he was essentially trying to help Sarah Ferguson by getting cash from Epstein to help out.
Well, what a sorry state of affairs. I mean, none of these people should be bankrupt. It takes a certain level of ineptitude, to be without money in their position. You have to be extremely frivolous. You have to be extremely uncareful with your money to be poor as a senior member of the royal family or associated to. They're living lifestyles way beyond their means, and I think it's hedonistic, and they've got just far too involved and disconnected too much with reality, it feels like to me.
Well, I completely agree, and we know, what is it, power corrupts, or absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Yeah.
And if you've got someone like Andrew, well, unlimited privilege and wealth and titles and status and position, and not too much accountability. I mean, there've been cops on royal property for the last couple of days now. Normally when there's a cop near Prince Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, it's a bodyguard.
Yes.
And now it's flipped and they're hunting him down. The question I've got for you, the issue is, we talked about money, we talked about allegations of sexual impropriety, and let's not forget there's a woman 6 feet under who took her own life, Virginia Giuffre, who Andrew Mountbatten Windsor wrote a cheque to for £12 million, which we understand was courtesy of the largesse of the Queen. Now, obviously you've got to be careful, not put two and two together and come up with five. There's an element of concern here about our national security, because it could be that Andrew was giving Epstein what he needed in order to keep that relationship going, keep the gravy train coming financially, to help Fergie, to keep the girls coming, allegations he denies. But there's another concern, which is there are links between Epstein and the Kremlin and the KGB. And that's very serious, because what that means is that Andrew might have been Vladimir Putin's useful idiot. And at that point, this goes beyond money and sex and becomes something even more serious.
Yes, and I do genuinely believe that he's a bit of a silly Billy, Andrew, and he will quite easily get himself into these
And he might
positions.
have walked into this of unwittingly becoming Vladimir Putin's useful idiot, the younger brother of the king.
Yes.
In cahoots with a man who is an international bad actor and a danger to this country.
Oh, and it's an incredibly huge scandal of the ages, of generations, of hundreds of years.
Russia are the enemy. And
yes,
you've got an allegation that Andrew is siding with the enemy, Andrew helping the enemy the brother of the head of state of the United Kingdom.
By the way, they're all the enemy. Even our allies are our enemy. You have to keep your information close. You can't just be sharing it. And if you're Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, then you'll know that better than anybody. You know, he would have grown up in and around knowing that those secrets are secrets for a reason, and just to dismiss all of that for his own benefit and possibly for the benefit of his urges and needs or his ex-missus seems to me a completely frivolous waste.
Sharon says, Mark, what about the bloody victims? Bill says, good morning, Mark. If Andrew is stripped of his 8th position to the throne, I hope Mandelson loses his title. How about this from Sharon, another Sharon? I really don't care, Mark, if he does anything to himself. I'm not concerned about him one bit. All the years when he was rude and obnoxious and thinking he was better than everyone else, he's paying the price now. Andrew, and concerns about his health. I'm sure there are concerns about his mental health, but there are concerns for tens of thousands of I can't read the rest of that, apologies, it just doesn't make any sense, so I think we've got a glitch there on the line. Can I ask you a simple question, Paul? Do you feel sorry for Andrew?
That we're all human, and I hope somebody is looking out for him. So I hope he's got someone.
Why do you hope that?
Because the idea that...
Because Sharon doesn't care.
No,
Sharon is like, let him rot.
No, look, and Sharon has every right to that view, and I completely understand it. And maybe if you ask me at another time, I might think the same way as Sharon.
Yeah.
But at the same time, this is someone's dad. This is someone's uncle. They don't like him.
He's a human being.
He's a human being. I'd like to make sure he's protected from essentially finishing his own life.
Most definitely. Listen, folks, so much to get through. Next up, has Keir Starmer just torn up the special relationship? Should we support America's airstrikes on Iran? Plus, more front pages and a fresh scandal for Labour. This is Talk Breakfast.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Listen, folks, so many messages coming in. Do you feel sorry for Andrew Mountbatten Windsor? Hev in Kent. Good morning, Hev. How are you this morning? Welcome to Talk Breakfast. Hev says, Mark, I totally agree with you. Andrew needs to be on self-harm watch. He needs to have his day in court, and the victims need to see this for their healing if he's found guilty of misdoings. It's all very sad, but it needs finalising. This from another listener. Mark, you need to stop talking this nonsense. To think about Virginia Giuffre. She's a human being. She committed suicide because of Andrew. I really do think you have lost the plot this morning. It's the first time I've ever disagreed with you. Sharon, thank you for disagreeing with me, because it's not an echo chamber. And let me tell you, Sharon, you are entitled to your opinion. Sharon, not happy with my remarks there about Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. What do you think? Do you agree with Sharon? Let me know. 6:39, and Fergus is in London. Good morning, Fergus.
Good morning, Mark.
Top of the morning.
I've spoken to you for years.
Listen, it's been too long. First of all, where'd you get your energy from? It's 6:39.
I know.
You should be half asleep. Have you had your 3 Weetabix yet?
Yeah, no, I've had 5. No,
Listen, top man. Now, Fergus, what's on your mind this morning?
Rubbish.
Go on.
Royal rubbish. I don't care about Andrew. I don't care if he's 20th to the throne. What about the Portugosians? What about the rape gangs? Oh, let's just talk about Andrew.
Do you think, Fergus, are you suggesting, Fergus, that the Andrew story is a distraction from the real problems facing this country?
Yeah, and I love your tie, by the way.
Oh, my goodness. Well, you're very kind. For those not listening or watching on YouTube, I'm wearing a very velvety tie, which, can I be honest with you, Paul and Fergus, it's TK Maxx's finest. Fergus, are you familiar with TK Maxx? Yes. It's not bad, is it?
No, it's not bad at all.
It's all the gear that the brands couldn't sell in their normal shops. So it goes off. I know. It's just the second division.
It's an exclusive jumble sale as well.
That's exactly what it is. The first thing you have to do when you go to TK Maxx, Fergus, first thing you have to do when you go in there is...
there as well.
What's that?
Coxie Woxie. Yeah,
Coxie's very good. The first thing you have to do, Fergus, when you go to a TK Maxx is tidy the place up.
Yeah, you do feel like you should.
Yeah, first thing, it's an hour of like folding jumpers and putting shirts back on hangers, and then I can start buying stuff.
What you've got to do is comb your hair.
Listen, this hair, can I tell you that someone said it was a wig, and I thought to myself, would you pay for a wig like that?
I love your hair, Mark.
It's a work in progress. What do you think about what Fergus has had to say there, Paul? Do you think that Andrew is the fall guy actually for other news stories that are more important, the rape gangs, the economy, Chagos Islands?
Yeah. First of all, good morning, Fergus. I do get incredibly frustrated with how distracted we become. I think, can you imagine if we'd put this much effort into the grooming gangs? The grooming gangs...
Oh, my God!
It just wouldn't have got to the point that it did, and I feel like it just feels like easy pickings with Andrew. I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that I agree with anything that's gone on or they shouldn't be arrested, but the idea that we are focusing on that above lots of other things we could do, to me, I do think is a distraction, Fergus. I think you're right.
Well, that's very interesting, isn't it? I've got a message here, Fergus, from... Let's have a look. It is... Oh, my goodness gracious. Where has this gone now? Because there's an important message. This is live radio. Let's find it. Talk among yourselves. You see, this is the problem. I'm not that good with technology.
That's why I love talkTV. I do.
Well, that's so nice of you. I would have been anorexic and suicidal by now if I was Andrew, says one texter. Pete says 12 million quid. Didn't another Epstein woman sue Giuffre for that money afterwards? Do you remember, Mark, that Mountbatten Windsor was one of the driving factors in a young mother taking her own life? Did we see him doing everything to prevent that? No, we did not. Steve says, good morning, Mark and Paul. All of you media presenters keep pointing out that Andrew denies all the accusations. Well, to quote Mandy Rice Davies, he would say that, wouldn't he?
Wouldn't he? Yeah, I remember that.
Where do you see this playing out? Fergus, what do you think is going to happen to Andrew? Do you think he will go to jail eventually?
No, nothing will happen to Andrew. He'll live in a lovely palace somewhere. He should be sent off to Dubai. I don't care what happens to him. I really, really don't care what happens to him. But I do care about the rape gangs. Yeah? Oh, no, we can't talk about that. No, we can't talk about the rape gangs. No, because we've got to talk about Andrew. He's immaterial. He's never going to be king.
Fergus, from your point of view, if we're to park the Andrew story, you got the rape gangs. What are the other important things we should be talking about?
Rape gangs and illegal immigrants. Oh, sorry, no, we can't call them that, can we? We can call them unofficial entrants or something.
That's exactly right. Irregular migrants, Fergus. Please, watch your privilege, Fergus. You've got to be politically correct.
No, sorry. Irregular migrants. And don't talk about Ash Wednesday. Talk about Ramadan. Yeah. Oh, yeah. What country is this? I can't remember. I thought it was Britain. I did think it was Britain. I really, really thought it was Britain. But apparently it isn't now.
Fergus, powerful words. Listen, we could chat all morning. You're full of beans. Thank you for the call. Really enjoyed it. We've got a full switchboard. We're discussing so many big issues. It's 6:44. Next up, more front pages. And has Keir Starmer just torn up the special relationship? Talk breakfast.
think he takes the Churchill expression of if you find yourself in hell, keep going, a little too literally. Keir Starmer, he will literally run headfirst into a wall if he thinks it's the right idea, and everyone else be damned whether or not they're telling him it's a popular or smart thing to do. He is convinced steadfastly that he is right, and I think that he takes it almost as a challenge to his authority when anybody sort of taps him on the shoulder and says, Prime Minister, are you sure about this?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, Mark, says Mike in Dorset. Great show. As regards Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, where is America in all of the Epstein debacle? From my perspective, I see a woman in jail, Ghislaine Maxwell, and an ex-English prince. Where are the American prosecutions? Let's point the finger at a woman and Britain. Not good. And also from Natasha, good morning, Mark. Why is there not the same furore over Mandelson as there is over Andrew? Is there a sense that Andrew is the fall guy in relation to these Jeffrey Epstein allegations, Paul? Because we've got Bill Gates, who stands accused of trying to put antibiotics into his wife's food because he had an STD that he picked up from Russian models. You've got Bill Clinton, who used the Lolita Express private jet as a bus service. You've got questions about Donald Trump. Why are these folk not facing censure in the way that Andrew is?
Well, it's political. I mean, it's convenient here for Andrew to be the centre of attention. It would be inconvenient for Mandelson to be, and in the States it would be very inconvenient for anyone to be involved, because Donald Trump is linked. You know, at the top of the establishment across the pond, it's the same as here. They're all linked in one way or the other. If you take the Clintons down, you take Bill Gates down, then there's no reason why you can't take anybody else down. They will be looking at Andrew and thinking, crikey, if they can do that to Andrew, then it can happen to almost anybody. But it is entirely political, and it's about political inconvenience and political convenience.
Well, is it anti-British in a way on the part of the Americans that the US establishment are using a member of the royal family, throwing him under the bus, letting him be the whipping boy so that they can escape justice? You know, because the problem you've got with royals, they don't generally sue people. I know Harry does, but leading members of the royal family tend not to sue anyone, and they tend not to respond to allegations. They just never explain, never complain. So that makes someone like Andrew more vulnerable than others.
Well, this never explain.
He can't defend himself.
Never complain, never. They're going to have to do a lot of explaining, because if, say, Andrew was to be convicted and be sent to prison, well, who knew what? We already seen in the papers today that they're urging bodyguards to come forward and say, what did you see? You know, you have a responsibility. And, I mean, that puts them in a very difficult position, because they go into these positions knowing that they can't really talk about what they see.
Yeah.
But what did the rest of the royal family know? How much do you really know about your brother? But if it's going on, all these buildings are central to this family. The comings and goings have to be very much measured and you know, tracked.
Sure.
So the idea that everything can go on without anybody knowing is impossible, absolutely impossible. So it'll be very interesting to see. I can see why people like Fergus say that nobody's ever going to get convicted, no one's ever going to go to prison, because it would be unprecedented. But if somebody was to, then this Epstein issue could bring down nearly every aspect and corner of the British establishment, and absolutely it should start bringing down people in the US as well, because the reason this proliferated for so long is because people knew they could get away with it, and they'll still believe that. They'll still believe that. They just, it just needs, these are just shots across the bow at the moment. But if you start seeing Bill Clinton get arrested, Bill Gates get arrested,
right,
then we are really going to see things unravel quite quickly, I think.
Most definitely. I found the Tash text. Good morning, Tash. She's in Bexhill. And she says, good morning, Mark. I couldn't agree with you more. The Daily Mail has been hounding Andrew for nearly 29 years. The others aren't far behind. Yes, I think he's at risk of self-harm. I also wonder if he's got ADHD, considering he did well with orders and commands in the military, but can't seem to focus in life. Why are we so focused on Andrew, and what is the government doing whilst we are? Well, that's a theme that many of you have established this morning, that we should probably be talking about: the grooming gangs, the destruction of our economy, the giveaway of the Chagos Islands, wokery in our public institutions, and the other things that this government are doing to destroy the country. And I'm sure you're right about that. What about the Prime Minister's decision, Paul, not to allow America to use UK air bases to strike Iran?
Oh dear, this is again very political. I don't think if this had been a centre-right Conservative government that we would have had the same problem. This will be Keir Starmer playing to his base, playing to his backbenchers. Who are you protecting here? Because I get very confused, particularly by the left on this, and the pro Pally gang, the watermelon people as I call them. I get very confused. How could you? We have actually seen them supporting Iran. The Ayatollah is being supported.
They've been
by
doing
large
marches, isn't it?
Swathes of the left. This man, the Ayatollah, has killed thousands of his own citizens.
Maybe 30,000. We don't know because of the media blackout.
Because they're saying things that he doesn't like. They're demonstrating against things he doesn't want to change. Why would we not support the US in doing something about that? My opinion is, if Iran falls, the Ayatollah falls, then the Middle East becomes a much safer place, because they are pulling the strings on absolutely everything there.
They pay for international terror, don't they?
They absolutely do. Everything that's going on with Israel is supported by Iran.
Hezbollah,
Yeah.
they bankroll the whole thing.
Everything you can imagine. And it's incredibly, I think it's controversial to say so, but it's incredibly pro-Islam. And Islam is at the centre of the problem. And I know we can differentiate between law-abiding good Muslims and Islamists,
yeah,
but at the end of the day, they're part of the same family, and Iran sits at the top of that family.
And you should make no apologies for doing that. Just as a Irish Roman Catholic myself, Irish parents, born in the United Kingdom, I will just as happily condemn the Republican Irish Catholic community for the IRA. And I will say that as a man of Irish parentage, that the IRA were evil, wicked terrorists. And it's a shame that more moderate Muslims can't do that in this country.
And I think that's a huge problem, because there is no ownership being taken, and because they've got protected characteristics as minorities, in inverted commas, within the West, within the UK, which they're not. They're really not. They're a very powerful bunch. They stick together very well, but because they've got protected characteristics, they're playing the game and they're getting away with it, and it's costing lives.
So what about this, Paul? The Defence Secretary, John Healey, stands accused of misleading Parliament over the legal threats facing the United Kingdom in relation to the Chagos Islands. He said in May that the government faced a legal challenge within weeks if it did not agree to the handover of Mauritius. Sorry, I keep saying that. If it did not agree to the handover to Mauritius of the islands. Where do you stand on Chagos? Because I wonder whether it's more complicated than some are suggesting.
Well, it is a very complicated thing. It's why the Conservatives were involved years ago. There's a legal dispute over, the way the islands were obtained. And don't forget, it was the Labour government in the 60s that obtained the Chagos Islands the way that they did, and essentially just sent all these people to Crawley. And now, I love the fact some of them have now gone back and saying, this is our home and we're staying here.
And we spoke to the First Minister the other day, and he's a hero, and he said he'd pay with his life.
Well, you can't do anything but admire that.
Yeah.
But one thing I would say, it's not complicated enough to deny how stupid the deal is. The deal is ridiculous. It doesn't work for anybody. It might work for some lawyers. It might work for the Mauritians, and it really does work for China. But outside of that, it doesn't work for us. It doesn't work for the people of this country and those that are contributing via taxes. The US are leaning one way and then leaning the other. Yeah. They seem to think that as long as the military base is safe, then it's fine. But I think Donald Trump's coming to his senses a little bit now, because it's not as simple as that. if you're handing over the ownership of the islands on which your base sits on a lease to your enemy, then it's only protected for seconds. It's not protected for a long time. So I think the Chagos deal is bad. I think that it's bad for absolutely everyone we should care about, and it should be thrown out as quickly as possible.
Most definitely. I just think that those that govern us have forgotten about this idea of national interest. So, for example, net zero is not in the national interest.
No.
China love that we're doing net zero because we weaken ourselves via that ideology. And, of course, we pay them a lot of money for the horribly environmentally unfriendly solar panels. We've got the Chagos Islands giveaway, which the Chinese love and the Americans do not. And we've got Britain not supporting America with airstrikes on Iran, which again, the Chinese and the Russians love.
Absolutely.
And America do not. Whose side are we on, Paul?
Well, you and I are on the right side. We're on the side of British people, we're on the side of West, we're on the side of Christianity and peace on earth. And I tell you why
Russia. To break into song there for a second.
Very nearly did. I was going to sing the national anthem and cry for a bit. But one thing I would say is Russia and China are also very dependent on Iran.
Hugely.
These are very key allies to one another. If Iran is to fall and that part of the world, for whatever reason, becomes under US rule, China and Russia are in a lot of problems.
Absolutely right. It would all fall like a house of cards, the so-called axis of evil back in the day. Sir Jim Ratcliffe, co-owner of Manchester United, Paul, avoids FA charges over immigration comments. Ratcliffe will not be charged by the Football Association over a controversial interview in which he claimed the United Kingdom had been colonised by immigrants. The governing body has issued him with a reminder of his responsibilities as a participant in English football when taking part in media interviews. Why did he even face this kangaroo court?
But it's all political. It's, this is kind of a victory for free speech in the sense that, there's not going to be an action taken. The idea of you're being reminded of your responsibilities is quite sinister.
Well, that's a yellow card, isn't it?
Yes. It's also very sinister because what responsibilities? Why do you need to remind me? Why can't I notice? Because all Jim Ratcliffe was ever accused of was noticing. He came out and he didn't just come out and say we've been colonised. He also come out and said that there are 9 million people on benefits. People that have come to this country that have never contributed and are never going to contribute and are taking away from the country through the means of benefits. That is, has every right to notice that, because in the frame and the context of the discussion, he was saying how can this country be progress and become profitable again?
Yeah.
And they were saying, well, you can't if you open your doors in the way that you have done. There is nothing wrong with what he said. That you can argue, people can be squeamish about the word colonisation, but what would you replace it with? Infiltration? You have to put a word in there because it's true.
Well, colonisation. It implies a lack of integration, and that's certainly something that we're facing. And may woe betide us for noticing it.
Good on Jim Ratcliffe as well. I know there's plenty of people who don't agree with his choice of words, but he's opened up the discussion, and I think it's brave for people at that level. Now, you could argue he's a billionaire with very little to lose, but we need people like that.
Well, isn't that why he's a hero? Because he's not making money from this intervention. He's insulated from the consequences of mass immigration. He lives in Monaco. So I respect the guy. He's actually got no skin in the game, but he still cares.
Well, exactly. But if you take other people on the other side of the argument, I just pull a name out the hat.
Yeah.
Emily Maitlis, living in a rather nice part of London, completely unaffected.
Too right. Talk Breakfast, more of Paul and myself on the front pages next.
Just breaking news in the last couple of moments. Extraordinary news. Not just that the police have arrived at the Sandringham estate where Prince Andrew, as was now Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, is currently living since being thrown out of the Windsor estate. The police have arrested Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. It's an extraordinary revelation and development on this story involving the Epstein files and all the allegations that have been swirling around about Andrew over the many years, from Virginia Giuffre, now sadly deceased, and since then, and certainly what's been contained in the Epstein files as released in the last few weeks. But the police have arrived at Sandringham Estate this morning, where Andrew has made his new home. It's his 66th birthday today. What a birthday present that is. He has been arrested by the police. Of course, the brother of the current king, the second son of our late Queen Elizabeth. This is an extraordinary development. Those of us who've been talking an awful lot about establishment cover-ups and lack of, shall we say, interest by the police in what are very, very serious allegations against Andrew. Perhaps pleased that that pressure has finally been put on the police, and they have done the job of actually looking into these issues seriously. Must bear in mind, of course, that the Prince has not been charged with any crime at this point, and he has always denied any wrongdoing in relation to any of the allegations about him. We'll give you more on that. We'll talk to you about that throughout the show, but I'm just being told that the arrest has been on suspicion of misconduct in public office. This, of course, relates to those Epstein file allegations and the documents that, if they are true, would suggest that he had, it is alleged, passed on basically what was confidential government information when he was the UK trade envoy for this country for 10 years to Jeffrey Epstein for Jeffrey Epstein's financial gain.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, happy Saturday, one and all. Three minutes past 7, you're listening to Talk Breakfast. Mark Dolan with you today and tomorrow. I've enjoyed a great run, actually. I've been looking after Jeremy Kyle's slot. Thank you for having me. Big Jezza is back on Monday. Well, we've got a busy weekend of shows. Don't forget, big names, big opinions, big guests, and Dolan's Dispatch, which today might get me cancelled, Ryan Thrussell. Good! And breaking this morning, palace officials are thought to be drawing up plans with the government to remove Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor from the line of succession. This follows the second day of police searches on the Windsor estate. But given that this man has been found guilty of no crime, has the king's younger brother suffered enough? Do you feel sorry for Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor? My phone number is 03444991000. Tommy's on the phones today. He's on great form. Davis is directing our television output. So if you're listening on the radio, lovely to have you. If you'd like to watch the show and see the rather controversial colour of shirt that I've worn today, head over to YouTube. I'll be honest, it divides opinion. Head to YouTube, search Talk, and up we pop. Meanwhile, Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, refuses to allow Donald Trump to use UK air bases to strike Iran. Whose side is he on? Has Starmer torn up the special relationship? A brave police officer tells a group of British Muslims that quoting the Bible on the street in their neighbourhood is free speech. Is there hope for British policing? And what about this? A fresh Labour scandal as the Defence Secretary stands accused of misleading Parliament over the legal threat in relation to the Chagos Islands giveaway. Is the relinquishing of this British sovereign territory now dead in the water? Well, here on Talk Breakfast, we're going to be fighting to save the Chagos Islands. 7:05, this is Talk Breakfast. As the saying goes, let's talk. My phone number is 03444991000. Give Tommy a call, book your place on the show. You can text the word talk and your message to 87222 or leave us a voice note. Ian has done just that.
Well, I never thought I'd agree with you, but I too worry about Andrew being a suicide risk. I think he's got a very fragile ego under all that bluster. Good on you, Mark, for your empathy.
Well, Ian, I really appreciate your voice note, and I'm a big fan of yours, Ian, because you text the show and the channel all the time. We don't always agree, but you're entitled to your view. No one's got a monopoly on wisdom or the truth or empathy, and Ian and I have found a landing space here in regard to Andrew. I'm worried about him, OK? I'm not going to defend him. I don't like him. He stands accused of the most egregious crimes that I can't even describe on a family show. But that doesn't stop me worrying about him. Are you worried about Andrew? 03444991000. Great show, Mark, says Kevin in Barnstable. You and Paul are a dream team for giving Starmer and his bunch of fools the dressing down they deserve. In case you ever find yourselves wavering, remember always Starmer is a disingenuous see you next Tuesday, which I think is a grown-up word. I say good on Jim Ratcliffe too. I don't disagree with him whatsoever. Zoe in Lancashire. Good morning, Zoe. She says, good morning, Mark and Paul. Starmer refusing to let Trump use our bases is all to do with Iran and Israel willing to help Trump fight Iran. Starmer doesn't want nothing to do with anyone seen to be helping these countries, as he's more interested in helping Gaza and terrorist countries who want to harm us. One day I will gain the power of speech and the ability to read a message out. I'll tell you someone that has a command of the English language and is more articulate than Shakespeare and drops more truth bombs than Margaret Thatcher. It is Linda Jubilee, journalist and communications expert. Good morning, Linda.
Good morning, Mark. How are you?
I'm very well. Thanks for setting your alarm clock to join us this morning. Do you feel sorry for Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor?
No, and I'm surprised that the cycle of events has reached this point quite so quickly. Normally in scandalous stories like this, it takes a while for the needle to move that far. But we are hearing that people may feel sorry for him. Certainly, I don't feel sorry for him. I don't feel sorry for his wife, Sarah Ferguson. I feel some marginal sympathy for Eugenie, Princess Eugenie and Princess Beatrice.
Why are you worried about that pair of grifters that are as bad as their parents?
Because I don't think they actually did anything here. I agree they may have turned a blind eye, but they are very young, so I think there's some hope for them. I think there's some hope for redemption. But I don't feel sorry for Andrew, not at all. If you knew or had heard some of the people I've spoken to who actually went to Naval College with him, Dartmouth Naval College, who describe his sense of entitlement as absolutely gigantic, even in those early days, you wouldn't feel sorry for him either. Because someone with a sense of entitlement like that, someone who uses their position and allegedly abuses their position in that way, undoubtedly damages many, many other people along the way. And it's those people who deserve our sympathy, not him.
Well, Christine has messaged the show, Paul and Linda. She said, good morning, Mark. Great show. They seem to have released Randy Andy a bit too quickly for my liking. I think he's a little squealer and has thrown lots of people under the bus to save his fat little arse. Mark in Alchester says, good morning, Mark. We've seen lots of photos and comments about Andrew out brazenly horse riding in recent weeks. Would it be beyond coincidence that before he faces potential criminal charges, that it's reported he had a fatal accident and is never seen live in public again? Not that I'm a conspiracy theorist, but... And then he says, great to have Paul Cox on the show. What a great guest. But listen, we hope that Andrew doesn't come to harm. Are you not worried about his welfare, though? Particularly if you're concerned about alleged victims, Linda, you still want Andrew on the planet. And I'm worried that he's entered a dark place, and I'm worried that he's a safeguarding risk.
I think that you're right to be concerned, and that says a lot about your humanity, Mark. I think that we should all be concerned about his well-being. And I'm sure that when he was arrested and taken into custody by the police, they did scrutinise his mindset at the time. They would have, for example, made sure that he didn't have a belt on. They would have made sure he didn't have shoelaces. They would have made sure there was no way he could physically do any harm to himself when he was in that holding cell. So it's true that the police paid very close attention to his mindset. I think that picture that we've just seen on the screen there, sadly for him, will become an iconic picture. I can't think what went through his mind, such as it is, that allowed him to put himself into that position. I mean, what was wrong with sitting upright in the seat? What was wrong?
What do you think, given your years of journalistic experience, what do you think he was up to there? Was he trying to avoid being photographed, Linda? What was going on?
I think he lost control, and I think he may have thought that by sliding down the seat, maybe they would not get a good enough shot. And it's very hard for photographers to get that kind of shot. We see them many times outside police stations, outside court, outside prisons, trying to get shots like that. They very rarely manage it. And here we are with this shot, not just that made national headlines in this country, but went global.
Well, his message has just come in. I don't feel sorry for him, but does public dislike for Andrew make a fair trial impossible? What say you, Linda Jubilee?
Very, very difficult. And I was on air after the arrest, and we had to be very, very well aware of the contempt laws, which actually safeguard the jury and how it comes to its own decision.
Yeah.
There are very few things you can say once charges have been laid, and there are few, and you have to be very careful, even if you think charges might be imminent. And I think most broadcasters were very, very fair. But the person has raised a really good point about a possible trial. We'll just have to wait and see, because I think the police are still searching other properties. Even though they've finished searching the one in Sandringham, they're still going through stuff in other properties. And I think the Telegraph story, which you might want to highlight, about some alleged potential deal that may have been set up by Jeffrey Epstein using David Stearns, Andrew's associate, and Cantor Fitzgerald, the American company. That's a really important story, because that happened after that alleged deal was set up 3 years after Prince Andrew actually said he'd ceased communications with Jeffrey Epstein. And just one more thought here. I know that people should feel some concern for Andrew. He is in a desperate place, but you have to remember that he kept on lying and compounding that with more lies. If you look at the Emily Maitlis interview, there's almost nothing in that we can't now back up with hard evidence that tells us that he wasn't telling the truth.
Well, that's powerful words, Linda, and I will agree that whilst he denies all the allegations, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor is in very hot water indeed. Paul, you don't like him, you're not going to defend him. Are you worried about him?
Oh, it's great to see Linda, by the way. I always feel slightly more intelligent when I'm working with Linda.
I totally agree. She's nourishing. It's like vitamins for your brain, isn't it?
She's great, isn't she? She's really she's raising us up. Good morning, Linda.
Yeah, no, she's brought some rare standards to the show.
I mean, everything Linda said is entirely true, by the way. There is plenty of reason not to feel sorry for Andrew. I always remind myself that on a human level, it would be wrong for me, I feel personally, to entirely dismiss that he does need to be cared for. But there are examples of people that don't deserve to be cared for. I just don't think that Andrew's quite reached that level yet. And he is getting his comeuppance. I would change my mind. If this all stopped tomorrow and blew over and he got away with it, I'd change my mind very quickly. But it feels to me like justice is close to being served, and hopefully due process will conclude, and we'll find the truth out. Because we just, as Linda said, he's compounded lie after lie after lie after lie. It's obvious. I know that he hasn't been convicted or anything, but it's obvious, and this is an opportunity for the truth to come out now.
And let's call a spade at 15 minutes past 7 in the morning on a Saturday on Talk Breakfast, which is there a chance that Andrew does something that he might regret, which is very serious if he's in a dark place? Is there a chance that he could do something very bad to himself? Is there also a chance he could be bumped off by the establishment?
Well, yes and yes. I mean,
or is that, have I spent too long in the rabbit hole? Have I lost the plot here?
Immediately, if something was to if Andrew was to do something to himself, the conspiracies would begin and never end. We know that. We know that from Epstein. We know that from Diana. We know that from all sorts of other people in similar positions. One thing that would happen if he was to do that to himself is justice wouldn't be served. And I've spent a lot of time, as we all have, talking about Andrew, talking about Epstein, talking about the truth. But I don't feel I've ever really spent a great deal of time talking about the victims. And the day in court is where the victims get their justice. So if he was to avoid that, much like Epstein's victims, then there would be a shame.
Linda, I make no apologies for going there. Is there a danger that Andrew, in a very dark space, might do something that he deeply regrets, which we pray with every cell in our body he doesn't do, or that he's bumped off by powerful people? Is there a risk of either of those things happening?
Well, you have to say that Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide. Virginia Giuffre is now dead, and there was a lot of speculation around her death. So it's something that we should be paying very, very close attention to. But I think there are two other things that I think are worth highlighting, apart from the actual prosecution and possibly a successful conviction. And I think we have to be careful about the legalities here. But the one thing we can talk about is whether he should be removed as eighth in line to the throne. Now, that is a given in my mind. MPs have to be discussing that, and they have to be discussing that very quickly. Also, he is officially a councillor of state. Now, that's a very, very important position. It means that if something comes up and there's an emergency with the king, the Queen is empowered to be the councillor of the state, Prince William, Prince Harry, then Prince Andrew, because it doesn't include any of the children who are all under 21 in the bloodline. Those two things can be done, and they can be done now. The problem for the royal family is they've done, the royal household or the communications people or whoever is advising them, they are doing the bare minimum, and they're doing too little, too late.
And let me be very clear that I have no evidence that the so-called establishment, the deep state, call it what you like, should wish ill on the safety of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. But as Linda mentioned, you've got Epstein, who mysteriously took his own life in jail. For some reason, the CCTV in the jail didn't work at that moment in time, and the security guard had gone for a cup of tea. So, OK, he took his own life. We'll just take that as read. But there are questions there. And, I've got no evidence at all that Andrew could befall a similar fate, but there are bound to be people who are powerful in the world who don't want Andrew to say what he knows, and that's why I just want to make sure that he's safe and in one piece so that his alleged victims can have their justice too. And just in regard to Andrew and being in a dark place, if you're struggling and if you're in a dark place, there's always help. The number one thing, if you're going through a hard time and you're very unhappy and you don't see the point, is that there's always help out there, and you cannot believe how transformative it is to speak to someone. That's why Samaritans are brilliant. Samaritans number 116123, 116123. More help available at talk.tv/helplines. That is talk.tv/helplines. And that is my worry, is that he's in a dark place. Has he suffered enough? David is in Gloucestershire. Good morning, David.
Good morning, Mark. How are we all?
I'm very well. That's why I've quoted Samaritans, because Andrew might be an idiot and an entitled fool, but he's a human being. Are you worried about Andrew?
Well, on a personal note, first of all, I've got no sympathy for him. There's an old adage about, which I keep quoting to people just recently, is about be careful about what you say on the way up, because at one time you're going to have to come back down again.
Yeah.
And apparently he's very, very arrogant, and he dismisses everybody on the way, So there'll be a lot of people who are looking out for him and thinking, I'm going to get him for what he said to me all those years ago.
Yeah.
But on the suicide risk, I'm going to say this very quickly. I had an industrial accident 8.5 years ago now, and I went from a working man to a blind man.
Yeah.
And this is a very, very hard, dark place. I did a video last year for a farming safety partnership, a safety foundation, and one of the parts that's very moving, everybody said, is the fact that I went into that very part that I said, when you go from being working to suddenly realising that you're totally blind, you get very, very dark place. And if I'd been braver, I wouldn't be here today. But the one thing I always think about is my daughter. And that's how you have to think of the children and the people you're leaving behind. That's all I'm going to say very quickly.
And David, let me tell you that your daughter is a very, very lucky girl, because her dad is courageous. An industrial accident, you've lost your eyesight, that is devastating. It's got practical implications, your mental health, and then, of course, your livelihood as well. David, you're a rock star. We love you, and I want you to stay in touch with me because we love your common sense as well, and you're a lot of fun. Big Dave, go and have a smashing Saturday, and we'll catch up soon. Powerful words from David there.
Yeah, I was moved by David there. Good on you, mate. I'm very sorry to hear that, particularly, losing your sight when you've had it for so long. Must have been tremendous, and sort of very moving words in the sense you can only imagine how difficult that must have been for him. But like you say, there's always light. In David's case, it was his daughter, and we've all got something we can hold on to. And
with Andy, we just got to make sure, idiot that he is, that he stays on the planet, that there isn't a punishment beating, which is so relentless. In the context of a man that's been found guilty of no crimes whatsoever, it feels a little medieval if you're not careful.
Yes, and of course it is, because he's the only one in the spotlight at the moment, and it's human nature. I think it's about time, as you've already mentioned, that the site was opened up a little more, and we started. There's lots of people involved in this, lots and lots of people.
I completely agree with you, many of whom have escaped censure so far. Linda, you get the last word.
Well, what I will say is that when some of the documents were released, it was said that in Virginia Giuffre's statement earlier on, 40 men were named and redacted, and the names redacted. Now, I think that's probably the tip of the iceberg. I think that Paul is absolutely correct. Such a pleasure to see you, Paul, by the way. It is baffling that we have not reached the bottom of this yet, but I don't think we have. I think we are going to see something on an industrial scale here, just because that's the way these things operate. But mark my words, we haven't reached the bottom yet. This story will, as we say in the trade, has legs, and I think it will go on and on.
Right, he's got 7,000 subscribers. Let's get it up to 10k, and I promise you won't regret your decision. Thank you, Paul. If you want some help, Samaritans 116123, talk.tv/helplines. Are you worried about Andrew? Well, I'll be asking the editor-at-large of the Mail on Sunday next.
we genuinely are on resignation watch. There is absolutely no doubt about it. Labour MPs, they say, listen, Keir, your position is untenable. This is all about appointing that rat, Peter Mandelson, who faces a criminal investigation.
Can Keir Starmer survive the Mandelson scandal? We have breaking news for you. We've just been talking about, of course, Morgan McSweeney, the Chief of Staff. We've now had another resignation from number 10. Keir Starmer's Director of Communications, Tim Allen, has now last couple of moments, extraordinary news. Not just that the police have arrived at the Sandringham estate where Prince Andrew, as was now Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, is currently living since being thrown out of the Windsor estate. The police have arrested Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. It's an extraordinary revelation and development on this story involving the Epstein files and all the allegations that have been swirling around about Andrew over the many years, from Virginia Giuffre, now sadly deceased, and since then, and certainly what's been contained in the Epstein files as released in the last few weeks. But the police have arrived at Sandringham estate this morning, where Andrew has made his new home. It's his 66th birthday today. What a birthday present that is. He has been arrested by the police. Of course, the brother of the current king, the second son of our late Queen Elizabeth. This is an extraordinary development. Those of us who've been talking an awful lot about establishment cover-ups and lack of, should we say, interest by the police in...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Has Andrew Mountbatten Windsor suffered enough? Are you worried about Andrew? This from an unnamed texter. Actually, it's Gary who says, good morning, Mark. Should we be concerned about Andrew? Unequivocally, no. We should be concerned about alleged victims. Leo in Kent, good morning, Mark. Prince Andrew may be guilty, but we're a Christian country, and those who believe and understand faith will also appreciate that. We're all sinners more than others. I'm actually upset that the vitriol of people like Linda Jubilee, your guest earlier, can't tone it down and dig deep for some human empathy and compassion, however they personally feel about Andrew, and express this alongside their dislike for his possible crimes. I hope Paul on your show stays kind and level-headed, and I think he'd make a lovely husband for Alex Phillips. Interesting. Well, is there a vacancy there? Who knows? Folks, what are you thinking about this? 7:27. Are you worried about Andrew Mountbatten Windsor? Charlotte Griffith is the editor-at-large at the Mail on Sunday. Good morning, Charlotte.
Morning.
Listen, great to have you on the show. I know you're going to be zooming off to your running club shortly because your body's a temple. But
I actually cancelled it, Mark, because there's too much news today.
Well, of course there is. Well, you've got one of the biggest jobs in Fleet Street, and those articles are writing themselves, aren't they, in relation to Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. This is a man, Charlotte, that many don't like, many won't defend. He's been found guilty, though, of no crime. Has he suffered enough?
Well, I do agree with your callers who said it was slightly kind of medieval, the point we've got to now, where it's kind of a sport, really, just camping outside his house. Obviously, that picture of him in the back of the car is, I have to say, a journalist's dream, because it just summarises the whole story. It was on the front page of every single newspaper. But he looked incredibly haunted and, unwell, basically. And I hope there's been a lot of suicides around this Jeffrey Epstein saga. Obviously, Virginia herself, Epstein himself. It would be, if something were to happen to him, I do think there'd be a slight, I hate to say it, blood on our hands. As a nation, have we made too much of a sport of this, of chasing him, following him? But, a picture of him with that little boy rolling a ball that looked like a breast yesterday made me think equally something really bad could come out in coming weeks or months, and maybe we'll think he got his just desserts. It's a difficult one, and the person I'm really worried about, by the way, is Fergie, because Fergie is in a really bad way, and the nation has had a very strange relationship with Fergie over the years. She suffered a lot in the early years, and people called her the Duchess of Pork, but she always had a strange affection, really. She always came back time after time. People loved the fact that she was really who she was, and she always admitted I've got flaws and, you know, I'm just a normal person. And people sort of loved her for that. And now what I'm hearing is that she's in a very bad way. In fact, there is a big piece about that in the Mail today.
Well, it'll be a fascinating thing to look at that story, because you have to wonder whether Sarah Ferguson is a safeguarding risk.
Definitely she's a safeguarding risk. And I think I know her daughters have been shepherding her around recently, but they have cut off Andrew altogether. So Andrew's not being shepherded. Andrew's alone on his 66th birthday, then gets arrested, then gets returned to Sandringham on his own. Meanwhile, at least Sarah's got her daughters and access to her grandchildren, I think, because they've been going on holidays kind of actually all around the globe trotting. But Sarah is kind of, I know that she's in a bad mental way because she's delusional at the moment. She wants to move back to Windsor and live near the royal estate, the Windsor Great Park estate. So not only is she in a bad way, but she's burying her head in the sand. She still thinks she can live her old life and she's desperate to be close to Windsor so she can be near her girls, but also, I suppose, so she can walk around Windsor Great Park and wave to people and still have that sort of feeling that she's slightly royal. And that ship has obviously sailed. So I also think she's kind of not living in reality at the same time.
Where does this leave Charles? We had a statement saying that the law must take its course. The palace will be supportive of the authorities' efforts to interrogate these allegations. Should the king, at a certain point, Charlotte, address the nation?
I think he should. I think he should address the nation. I think once the police have concluded their work, that would be the best time. And he's got the perfect excuse. He can't really speak to the nation while the investigation's going on. And I think he'd be wise to wait until the Royal Lodge search is finished, because there's absolutely mountains to go through in Royal Lodge. And what I was hearing is that the Yorks are actually quite nervous because they didn't finish their clear up. Because if you remember, Andrew had to leave for Norfolk a bit earlier than planned.
So he left reportedly removal vans turned up in the dead of night.
Yeah, and they removed the basics, but it's full of clutter and rubbish. And among that clutter and rubbish, there could be something really damaging. We don't know. And they are still searching Royal Lodge, and the search will probably go on till Monday, which I think shows quite how much there is to go through. And if you think the 3 million Epstein files are absolutely stuffed to the rafters with horrifying facts and revelations, I have to say it's pretty likely that the same will happen at Royal Lodge. There's got to be something that could be very damaging there. So I think the king would be wise to hold back until everything that can come out has come out. Although I have to say the Epstein files will probably keep coming out for years to come. But yeah, I think he should speak, but he should be patient about it.
What do you think are the king's predominant emotions in relation to his brother Andrew? Concern or anger?
I think probably more concern, actually, because I know Anne and Edward are concerned about Andrew, and they took his shotgun licences away, which you and I have spoken about a few times now. Yeah. But it's just so telling that they were really worried about him. And, you know, at the end of the day, Charles is a very compassionate man, and he's a real softie, actually. Unlike William, who's hard as nails and is incredibly, you know, for example, with Harry, he's cut Harry off. I don't think if Harry was going through a big traumatic media event or even a sort of police event, I just don't think William would feel any sympathy for Harry. However, I think the king will feel sympathy for his brother, because his brother's guilty of the family trait, which Harry has too, which is stupidity as well. And you just feel through the Epstein files that this is a man who, of course, should have known better and, of course, made some really horrible decisions. But, you know, also was just being taken advantage of because he's so stupid by Epstein. You can tell that in the Epstein files, that he's completely manipulated. And I think the king will be well aware of that, because the king is one of the brighter members of the royal family. And he was the one that advised that Andrew didn't become a trade envoy, because Charles knew this. He's too stupid. He'll fall for every trap in the book. He'll go around playing golf and chasing women and disgracing himself. And he's not bright enough to make well-informed decisions. So I think, in a funny sort of way, I think Charles will be quite sympathetic about that as well.
Indeed. Lots of messages coming in thick and fast, Charlotte. Eugenie, appropriately named, in Bexhill-on-Sea, says, good morning, Mark. If anything happens to Andrew, a lot of information goes with him. So I'm worried in the sense that if he goes, information goes as well. Sharon says, no, Charlotte, we will not have blood on our hands. Not at all. We don't care if Andrew and Fergie are in a bad way. Who cares? They have blood on their hands for all the awful things they've done. Well, of course, Sharon, you're entitled to your view. Andrew denies all allegations against him. Terry says, thousands of young white girls raped and murdered, and you go on about this squirrel diversion. Do you think there's any sense in which this Andrew story is a distraction from other issues facing the country, Charlotte, or are we entitled to be giving it due coverage?
I think we are entitled to be giving it due coverage, and I agree with Sharon. This is the worst scandal to have ever happened to the monarchy. It's totally shocking, and it does deserve to be on every front page. And it's not really a distraction because it doesn't take many pages to get into a newspaper, and all the other issues are in there. There is just so much news globally. It's a crazy time. It's just where you choose to divert your attention to, I suppose.
Well, most definitely. And Charlotte, how do we see things playing out in the days ahead? Because the problem for the royal family is that this police investigation and any legal proceedings that follow are going to take months, if not years.
Yes, because royal events, which are the bread and butter of what the monarchy does, may as well be on hold. You know, Prince William did an interview on BBC Radio 1, I think, about mental health the day before Andrew got arrested. And it was all completely blasted out of the water. It barely got half a page in some newspapers. So I think the royal family are going to have to work out what they're going to do, how they're going to continue to work. Because actually the causes, if they do any more mental health campaigns, for example, that might not sit very well with all this coverage about Andrew, and if it gets any coverage at all. So I do think things will start to die down a bit until the police conclude their work. But I do also think the royal family are going to dial down a bit too.
Well, most definitely. I don't like Andrew. I don't want to defend him as a human being. The allegations are serious. He denies them, Charlotte. But I want him on the planet so that he can tell the police and the authorities what he knows. I'd like this resolved as an issue. Last but not least, do we know who's going to pay Andrew's legal costs, which will run into many thousands?
That's such an interesting question. I don't think it will be King Charles. I just wonder whether he'll call on some of his mates in the Middle East to pay.
Which in itself is compromising.
Yeah, the whole thing is a mess. It doesn't look good at all if you have the, say, I don't know, the Crown Prince of Bahrain or someone like that paying. But then again, it looks terrible if King Charles pays. But I think Charles will feel obliged to carry on paying his board and lodgings.
Charlotte Griffith, I look forward to reading your coverage of this story over the weekend, and the Mail have got a great piece on Sarah Ferguson as we speak. Check it out on their website or buy the paper. Charlotte, have an excellent day. I know it's going to be a busy one. We'll catch up soon. Charlotte Griffith is the editor-at-large of the Mail on Sunday. And so what about this from Gary? Family trait, stupidity, lol. I call it inbreeding. Michael says, why is Starmer so obsessed with nailing Andrew instead of fixing this broken country? And let's have a look. We've also got this. Colin, can we please leave this Epstein stuff now? There's more important stuff going on with our country and its demise by this rotten government. All this is doing is taking the heat off the government and its misdemeanours that is being driven by them. Here's a voice note from Sean.
Morning, Mark. Sean from Grimsby, just heading out now to meet up with up to 250 former soldiers, patriots, people who love the country. And I know one thing when I get there, the loathing for Keir Starmer will be off the charts. And what do we get in return for saving a country, mate? Eh? We get homelessness dumped to the bottom of the queue behind immigrants, and then we get dragged through the courts years later. Anyway, Mark, great show. And I'll look forward to next Friday, mate.
Top man. Sean, I wish I was there to buy you and your mates a round of beers because you've earned it. And can I, on behalf of all of my viewers and listeners, salute you for your contribution and your service to this country. So much more to come. Are you worried about Andrew Mountbatten Windsor? Has he suffered enough? Your call's next.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Laura Jane Hampshire has called Talk Breakfast at 7:40. Laura Jane, welcome. Laura Jane in Hampshire. There you go. How are you, my darling?
I'm okay, thank you, Mark. Having danced with Prince Andrew aged 8, and he stepped on my toes too many times, I remember thinking even then, what an oaf, and I kept well away. But having said that, I feel we're becoming inhumane in the way we are chasing him like a pack, a human pack of wolves, and it's becoming almost, as somebody said, unchristian. First of all, he hasn't been charged. We all know instinctively that he's been stupid and he's done some terrible things. We don't need the police to tell us that. We know, and I definitely know. But the point is that there are so many more important things going on. We've got the rape gangs, which everyone ignores, and no one apart from Rupert Lowe is doing anything about.
Yeah.
And I feel for those girls. This man, obviously, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, everybody wants to know the gory details, but you are so right to think of his mental health. If that had been me coming out of a police cell and questioning, I think I'd have been slumped in the car in shock. I wouldn't have known which way to look. I don't think I would have noticed that there were flash bulbs going. I would have been in deep shock, wanting to get home and just pull the duvet over my head. And I think that we're beginning to behave appallingly. And I don't mean to criticise the press, because I feel very strongly that all the journalists on Talk Radio are extraordinary. But I do feel that some of the press that you've interviewed it's just not right. And we have other things that are more important than chasing this man. The police will do their job, the law will do its job, and please let's think about all those other things that are distressing beyond belief. Nobody is doing anything about those women around the country who have been raped and the girls who are continually being raped. Why is that not back there? Nobody seems to be looking into it. The inquiry is dead in the water as far as I can work out. I feel for those girls. I really do. I bet they're looking at the newspapers going, what about us? What about us?
Indeed, and the victims of the rape gangs have been abandoned by the political left, which is ironic because they consider themselves the good people, Laura Jane, the ones with empathy. Where is the empathy for what could be, Laura Jane, 250,000 victims? And here's the horror show. I spoke to a leading defence lawyer in the Northwest who represents some of the victims, and he's told me on this programme that the problem is not just ongoing, Laura Jane, it's worse than ever.
I'm sure it is, and I feel sick. I really do. I sympathise beyond. I'm a Roman Catholic, and I pray every day that somebody is going to sort this out, because Starmer, you're right. I mean, they don't want it. I think the Epstein, it's our Epstein files in there
on acid times 100, and they don't want to do it because it doesn't fit the narrative that diversity is our strength, LJ.
No, and that's the horror of it, is that there is so much disgusting mud underneath a lot of people, the police, local councillors, imams, you name it, they are all covering this up. And I'm sorry, but it is disgusting. Absolutely disgusting.
It is disgusting. And you know something, Laura Jane, you've absolutely spurred me on to make sure that issue of the victims of the rape gangs, with those crimes ongoing, must have a lot of attention. And I'll use this platform to do just that. And thank you for reiterating that. Laura Jane, before you go, clock's against me. What is the context of you dancing with Prince Andrew when you were 8? Are you able to tell me? Are you allowed to tell me?
Well, I was born into a privileged background. My uncle was the Lord Chamberlain at the time of the Princess of Wales's death, and he had to work out between Tony Blair and the Queen. My grandfather was also the Lord Chamberlain to the Queen Mother.
My goodness.
And one of my uncles married Princess Alexandra. So I feel there are lots of feelings going around in my head.
And you were in royal circles, and you came to, there was an occasion you came to dance with Andrew. He was a bit ignorant.
We had to. We were doing Scottish reeling.
Oh my goodness! And he stepped on your toes. And you were 8, and he was probably what, in his sort of 30s, early 30s.
He was 8. We're the same age. We're exactly.
Oh, I see. So you danced with a young Andrew.
We were both 8. He was
Amazing.
born in February, and I'm born in April. And so I do remember feeling, please, Nanny, don't let me dance with him again. I instinctively knew, and obviously I didn't think it like that. But looking back on the times, I've always felt slightly uncomfortable. But that aside, I still feel that he's a human being, and we should all be Christian and look at other people's wrongdoings in the same way that I feel very strongly about that.
Laura Jane, you're so right, and thank you for that amazing story from your childhood. Call me again soon. Barry and Norwich, I've only got a couple of seconds. Apologies for that. Are you worried about Prince Andrew, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor? Has he suffered enough?
No, I'm not. I'm not worried about him at all, to be frank. Yeah, at all. Yeah, good riddance to him, as far as I'm concerned. And I don't want him to take his own life. No, I don't, because I want him to face justice and go to the court. I don't want him to get out of it that easily. So yeah, I think someone should be watching him. Yeah, on the basis that he may be a suicide risk. But yeah, I just want to say. Yeah, because I think it's a distraction, that whole Andrew thing, to be honest. I just want to say, can we stop calling these grooming gangs and call them what they are, Pakistani Muslim rape gangs? Yeah. And I think this is what the government need to do. They've kicked that into the long grass, and I find that absolutely disgraceful. It's a stain on this country, Mark, an absolute stain that needs to be taken out. Because, you had a front bench of all female ministers on the Labour cabinet, all voting against it. Some of them mothers, I know, for votes, putting the safety and, this is rape on an industrial
And we're
scale.
told that these Labour MPs that don't want a rape gang inquiry, as you say, Pakistani Muslim rape gangs, these are the good people, Barry.
Yeah, I mean, I thank God for Rupert Lowe who's doing something about it, to be honest with you. Yeah, because none of these MPs want to deal with it. And we need to talk about the economy, which is going down the drain. I heard inflation had gone down the other day. I went shopping and I was like, really?
I didn't get the memo. Barry, I wish we had longer. Call me again soon. I totally agree with you. Pakistani Muslim rape gangs is what they are, and it's a national scandal, probably the worst scandal in our history in terms of the safety of young British women, and it's ongoing. We must talk about it, and talk about it we will. Talk Breakfast, I've got a very interesting story next, and it relates to all of this. British policing, well, wait for this, there may be hope. 7:49, Talk Breakfast. Good morning to you. This is Talk the Home of Common Sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Just breaking news in the last couple of moments. Extraordinary news. Not just that the police have arrived at the Sandringham estate where Prince Andrew, as was now Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, is currently living since being thrown out of the Windsor estate. The police have arrested Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. It's an extraordinary revelation. And certainly what's been contained in the Epstein files as released in the last few weeks. It's his 66th birthday today. What a birthday present that is.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, a fascinating video has gone viral on X, and it's a female police officer explaining to a group of British Muslim men that it's free speech for a Christian to preach from the Bible in their neighbourhood. And it's definitely an example of the opposite of woke policing. Let's take a listen.
I hear what you're saying. In this country, we have freedom of speech, the same way you guys have your freedom of speech. Now, you guys don't need to see eye to eye, and you don't need to agree, and you're all more than welcome to stand here and have conversations with them, but they're not being aggressive. They're not.
Someone else come here, hear this, he might get smashed up.
That's their risk. That's their risk.
I told the police, because on the way, I heard them say an offensive word about the religion. I ignored it, I came back. On the way, he's talking about a prophet, then he said, like a donkey.
So he clarified to one of your friends what he says.
Yeah, but it's like, no. You know, if I could misunderstand the word, but when hundreds of people are stopping, because what he's saying, there must be something wrong.
It's contentious though.
Yeah.
It's a contentious area.
So why is he doing that? Yeah.
What's the moral of the story? Is he allowed to do whatever he did?
Yes.
Now, that was a great clip. The sound wasn't perfect, but I think you got the flavour. A group of British Muslim men who were unhappy that there was a Christian person saying Christian things out loud in their neighbourhood. And a very interesting post from a journalist and commentator called Khadija Khan, who has written the following. How difficult is it to comprehend that there are no blasphemy laws in Britain? Criticising, scrutinising, debunking and even mocking Islam like any other religion is not a crime here. She goes on to say, bravo to the police officer who refused to back down and defended free speech in the face of this Islamic zealotry. She says compared to many British politicians, including Keir Starmer, she seems to have more guts to call a spade well done. Well, Khadija Khan joins me now. Good morning, Khadija.
Good morning, Mark. Thank you so much for having me on.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you on the programme. Your response has received a lot of plaudits online. What were your emotions when you watched this video and you saw a policewoman standing up for free speech?
Yeah, it beggars belief, really, that it is happening in Britain. As I said, how difficult it is to understand that there are no blasphemy laws here in Britain. We have a right to criticize, scrutinize, debunk, and even mock religious belief, including Islam. And it's not a crime here. But by the so-called reasoning of these Muslim fundamentalists, they wouldn't be allowed to practice their own belief in this country. The first principle that defines a Muslim is called the Shahada, in which Muslim professes that there is no true God but Allah. This proclamation effectively denies the legitimacy of all other religions. I think these individuals, including myself, we should all appreciate living in a free, democratic country where we have a right to freely practice our beliefs. And I think we don't have a right not to be offended. And this is the price that we pay for living in a free country. And I commend the police officer. Bravo, really. She stood up for free speech. She refused to back down and defended free speech and the law of this country in the face of Islamic zealotry. She knew the law and she had the will to implement the law. This is all she did. And it was extraordinary, given that we don't have this kind of will to implement the laws of the land among the political elite in this country. And I think we have to understand that what is the most disturbing aspect of this incident is that these fundamentalists, they felt so emboldened to assert the superiority of their religious belief in a social sphere. And that should worry us all. Regrettably, these religious fundamentalists, they have been encouraged by the policies of appeasement, which have been designed to keep the calm, as they say, in this country. But it's not working anymore.
No, it isn't working, and it's unusual to see a police officer stand up for free speech, Khadija, isn't it? Because we've seen the police turn a blind eye to the so-called weekly peace marches in which anti-Jewish sentiment has been expressed and which people have walked around with signs saying globalise the intifada, which means bombs on public transport and in football stadia. The police have been asleep at the wheel when it comes to tackling extreme Islamism.
Couldn't agree more. We have to be honest about one thing, that religious fanatics, they undermine the very concept of human rights, feminism, and religious freedom in order to impose their own intolerable ideologies on society. It is time for the British politicians and the authorities to stop infantilizing Muslims. I think they need to wake up to this reality that we do have a problem with Islamic extremism in this country. This unwarranted infantilization is fueling the extremist attitudes in certain segments of Muslim communities. It is sinister, insidious, and it suggests that Muslims are somehow incapable of facing criticism of their beliefs and that Islam is without fault. It's just perfect, which is, of course, not true. When problem arises, the viewpoint, this infantilization implies that they are solely due to the distorted interpretation of their faith. Such a perspective is both outlandish and misguided.
And we have another... Yeah, go on.
As you just said, that we have a problem of growing anti-Semitism right now in this country, and it is because we have been blinded by the unhinged political correctness and, you know, this narrative that somehow religious sensibilities ought to be prioritized over human rights, and people should not be protected, but the fragile religious sensibilities should be given priority in social
absolutely. And Khadija, very briefly, if you can, what's worrying about this clip is I think some of these British Muslim men, they're not even extremists, and yet they think that somebody speaking a Christian scripture in their community is hate speech, and they think that where they live should be protected from any Christian voices. That's a dangerous place to be.
I would say that I couldn't agree more. We have to make this one thing very clear, that we live in a country, in a free country, where we have a right to criticize religious beliefs. We have a right to debunk and denounce religious belief. And this applies across the board.
All of them. Jews, exactly. Christians, Muslims.
Exactly. Islam has no privileged position in this society. And these bunch of extremists and fundamentalists, they have to understand this thing, that we cannot prioritize religious sensibilities. But you know what? The problem is not this bunch of religious fundamentalists only. We have a problem, notwithstanding the cowardice disguised as political correctness.
Absolutely. That's at the heart of it. Khadija Khan, okay. Thank you. We'll speak soon. Talk Breakfast.
Just breaking news in the last couple of moments, extraordinary news. Not just that the police have arrived at the Sandringham estate where Prince Andrew, as was now Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, is currently living since being thrown out of the Windsor estate. The police have arrested Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. It's an extraordinary revelation and development on this story involving the Epstein files and all the allegations that have been swirling around about Andrew over the many years, from Virginia Giuffre, now sadly deceased, and since then, and certainly what's been contained in the Epstein files as released in the last few weeks. But the police have arrived at Sandringham estate this morning, where Andrew has made his new home. It's his 66th birthday today. What a birthday present that is. He has been arrested by the police. Of course, the brother of the current king, the second son of our late Queen Elizabeth. This is an extraordinary development. Those of us who've been talking an awful lot about establishment cover-ups and lack of, should we say, interest by the police in what are very, very serious allegations against Andrew. Perhaps pleased that that pressure has finally been put on the police and they have done the job of actually looking into these issues seriously. Must bear in mind, of course, that the Prince has not been charged with any crime at this point, and he has always denied any wrongdoing in relation to any of the allegations about him. We'll give you more on that. We'll talk to you about that throughout the show, but I'm just being told that the arrest has been on suspicion of misconduct in public office. This, of course, relates to those Epstein file allegations and the documents that, if they are true, would suggest that he had, it is alleged, passed on basically what was confidential government information when he was the UK trade envoy for this country for 10 years to Jeffrey Epstein for Jeffrey Epstein's financial gain.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Three minutes past 8. Wakey, wakey, rise and shine. Happy Saturday, one and all. Your weekend starts here. This is Talk Breakfast. I'm Mark Dolan with you until 10 a.m. And in today's Dolan's Dispatch, in an hour's time, I'll be dealing with Andrew Mountbatten Windsor in no uncertain terms. You won't want to miss it. It might get me cancelled. Good. And breaking this morning, palace officials are thought to be drawing up plans with the government to remove Andrew Mountbatten Windsor from the line of succession, because we still have an amazing scenario where, may God forbid, if there were a couple of helicopter crashes and if a boat sunk, he'd be king. Yikes. Now, this decision to remove Andrew from the line of succession follows a second day of police searches on the Windsor estate. But given that he's been found guilty of no crime, has the King's younger brother suffered enough? Are you worried about Andrew Mountbatten Windsor? Is he a safeguarding risk? Do you have sympathy? Is it like a witch trial? Let me know your thoughts. My number is 03444991000. Tommy is taking your calls today. He's a busy bee, let me tell you. And Davis is directing our TV output. So what you got to do? It's Luke. I'm in so much trouble. The problem is I have the back of their heads. I can never see. Folks, if you want to watch the show, head to YouTube, search Talk and Up We Pop. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. Leave us a voice note. And as the saying goes, let's talk. Also in this hour, Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, refuses to allow Donald Trump to use UK air bases to strike Iran. Has he torn up the special relationship? And a fresh Labour scandal as the Defence Secretary stands accused of exaggerating the legal threats in relation to the Chagos Islands giveaway. We'll get to all of that in the company of two very good friends of mine. We have the Talk presenter and broadcaster Phil Dave and Labour councillor and commentator Sebastian Salek. Lads, welcome to the show.
Good to see you. Good morning.
Phil, are you worried about Andrew Mountbatten Windsor?
Well, I think worried is a curious choice of words. No, I'm not worried, but I do find the attitude of society quite worrying because, as you rightly said in your introduction there, he's not actually been found guilty of anything yet. Now, don't get me wrong, I'd be lying if I didn't say this smells very fishy, to say the least. But for heaven's sakes, what happened to the concept of innocent until proven guilty?
You raise a good point. Are you worried about Andrew?
Not particularly. I mean, innocent until proven guilty is a legal doctrine, and we uphold that, doesn't mean that society can't vote with its feet beforehand. Look, is he a safeguarding risk? Only those who have assessed him knows, and I hope that he'll be treated the same as anybody else who's facing justice. And Linda Jubilee, who was on your programme earlier, put it really well. You know, he would have gone through checks, make sure that he's not a risk to himself, which is the right thing to do. But I don't think this is the time to be pouring sympathy on a man who is widely disgraced. There are a lot of allegations against him, and he should do the right thing and let those play out in a court of law.
But that is just the point, isn't it? They're allegations. And I can't help but wonder how other people who are very quick to judge Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, how they would feel if maybe they were in his shoes. Because until he is actually proven guilty of something, and look, like I said, I don't deny this seemed very dodgy indeed. I think anyone with eyes can see that. But the point is, he's still not guilty. And I wonder how they'd feel if they were being treated
Well,
in
I
the
think
way
the key issue here is that he's been very evasive, hasn't he? He's settled outside of court in the US. He has, up until now, not engaged with lawmakers in the UK. And this is a real turning point. That's why this week has been so important. We may finally see the truth come out when he's under oath, when he has to give the truth. So let's see what happens. But certainly his behaviour is very, very suspicious indeed.
But it sounds like, Sebastian, you've made your mind up that he's a wrong 'un. That is not innocent until proven guilty. That is not due process.
Well,
that is trial by media.
Well, no, this is what I'm saying. There's a difference between innocent until proven guilty, which is a legal doctrine, which means that he's not going to prison.
So
he's
do you
not
not
being
believe
treated
someone's
as a
innocent until
criminal.
proven guilty, then?
Well, we can all make our own judgments, can't we? And that's what we do on this programme.
Believe me, there are plenty of people
else.
who make judgments, but I'm saying is, do you not believe that someone is innocent until proven guilty, then?
Well, put it like this. If somebody in your life were alleged to be a paedophile, they had an accusation against them, would you not distance yourself from them a bit? I think I would.
Yeah, but I might distance myself, but it doesn't mean that I would treat them as being convicted of that crime until they had been.
No, but you are not treating them as if they are innocent then, are you? If you're distancing yourself, you are societally removing yourself from that person, which is in effect treating them as if they may be guilty.
But I'm nowhere near Andrew Mountbatten Windsor.
I don't think I would.
So you say distancing.
Would you stand by a friend?
I think that if a relative or a friend was accused of these crimes which they denied and they've not had their day in court, I would not disown them, and I wouldn't throw them under the bus in the way that Andrew has.
I wouldn't say disown. You said you used the word distance yourself, and I'd sort of say that I would probably want to sort of see how something played out, but I certainly wouldn't say that I would abandon someone in their hour of need, because let's be honest, that's a dreadful thing to do to someone.
Well, it depends what they've done, doesn't it?
It's still a bad thing to do to someone until actually proven guilty.
Okay, I think a lot of people would disagree with that.
I would be inclined to
they would.
fall in.
It goes to show what kind of person they might be.
I'd be inclined to fall in with you on this concern about Andrew. The allegations are truly egregious. There is also a volume and weight of allegations, and there's the background, the context of this man who is provably arrogant and entitled.
Yeah.
And I also do respect the esteemed judgment of journalists like Andrew Lowney that have been investigating this guy for 5 years, threatened by his lawyers when writing the book. And Andrew Lowney told me on this programme that the guy should be in jail. So Lowney's made his mind up as well. My concern is the contrast between the focus on Andrew here in the UK and the lack of focus on Bill Clinton, Donald Trump and Bill Gates in the United States. Where are the police investigations there? Why isn't old Bill Gates having his hard drive examined at the moment? This is a guy that stands accused of seeking to drug his own wife because he had an STD that he picked up from Russian models.
Yeah, you make a very good point, and I think anybody who's had any kind of a shade cast over them by the Epstein files should be looked into. But
what about Bill Clinton?
Sadly,
he used the Lolita Express, which was the private jet belonging to Jeffrey Epstein. It was like a bus service for Clinton. He lived on that plane.
Yeah, look, if that is the case, then maybe that opens questions as well. I mean, I would take issue with Lolita Express, which, I mean, is that a name you're making up?
Clues in the name, right?
Is that the real name?
Well, what it is, that was the nickname for his private jet.
The nickname, okay.
And the reason why it was called that is because Lolita is a book written by Vladimir Nabokov about a relationship with an underage girl.
Quite.
Which is pretty wild. I've not read it. I'm waiting for the film. Phil, where do we go from here? King Charles, is he... Your appraisal of his handling this so far, I wouldn't mind if he talked to the nation, to be honest.
Yeah, look, I think that maybe a little more has to sort of come out first before His Majesty does address the nation. I find it very unnerving the way that people are so quick. It's really quite revolting the way that the anti-monarchists are using this as the perfect excuse to say, oh, look, the monarchy's dead, it's terrible, we don't need a monarchy, blah, blah, blah. Look, I'm sorry, but as far as I'm concerned, the king is not the one who has alleged to have carried out any of these actions. And even if he did know about it, as anyone out there who is actually saying, you know, if he knew more, he should have come forward, is anyone really telling me that they would have shot their brother in like that? I doubt it, so...
What do you think about the king? What's your appraisal? There are many that think we need a video address to the nation from our monarch, Sebastian.
It may well come to that point. I mean, look, I think he was right the other day to make a statement. He said that the law must take its course, and I would completely agree with that. And I say this as somebody who believes in the power of the monarchy and the force for good in this country and abroad. So I'd like to see the monarchy survive this, and I think they will. I hope they will. But that requires... perhaps unorthodox comms techniques that maybe the royals haven't tried before.
Phil, I don't like Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, but I'm worried about him, and I think he is a safeguarding risk. And I've heard what Sebastian said about checks and all of that. Well, how many, you know, how full are there the graveyards of people that said they were fine before something bad happened? I am concerned for his welfare. Do you think that the palace have to make sure that this guy is fed, watered and kept mentally in check?
Well, there's only probably so much the palace can do on that front, but actually where we've often seen the problem, and I regret, because obviously I'm very much a part of the media world, but I think that the biggest problem with issues like this is normally the part the media plays, where they just hound and continue to harangue and obsess over a particular individual who, for whatever reason, you know, obviously sort of has got to go through some sort of legal process. But if you can imagine the stress of the legal process, and then to top it all off, having their linen aired in public, well, that's normally one of the biggest causes of it. There are plenty of people who go through the court system who don't necessarily go, at the end of the day, taking their own lives. I just think that sort of the media needs to recognise that this is obviously going to be quite a long process. It needs to unfold bit by bit, and we've got to recognise that we should only really report on facts and not speculate too much, because that is probably what would drive someone to that sort of action.
What are the implications for the future of the monarchy, Sebastian, based around the fact that we've got these allegations, which Andrew denies? It's going to be a protracted police investigation, and it could be in court for years.
Well, I mean, the crucial element to this is that the monarchy lives or dies on public opinion, and you're never really secure in that position, and we've seen real tests of that over the last 30 years or so, haven't we? And I think this is probably the biggest test that we've seen in our lifetimes. So it's about separating the rest of the royal family from Andrew, and hopefully they are separate in their actions and in what they knew, and in that sense they're able to draw a line between him and the rest of them, cast him out, allow him to face justice, and then carry on. And look, I think Charles has done a very good job taking over. Big boots to fill, to say the least, and I'm very, very optimistic about William as well, and he's been particularly bullish in this situation. He's been particularly outspoken within royal circles, and so I think the day that he does come to take the throne, he will be very, very firm indeed, and won't allow this kind of behaviour to flourish.
Simon says, Mark, if I was Andrew, it might be time to make a clean breast of things and face up to your allegations, but it's probably beneath him. Well, Simon, you raise a good point. That photograph of him 2 days ago in the back of a limo, looking like a haunted rabbit, it was certainly not a man that was ready to fess up and face the music. How about this from Carol in Shoreham by Sea? Good morning, Mark. I can't believe you're still making almost a whole 4-hour programme on the Andrew situation again today, especially as nothing's changed and he's not been proven guilty of anything apart from stupidity and arrogance. Please, can we have some actual news, like that idiot Lammy trying to force through the abolition of jury trials when they just need to get courts open and judges and staff to work proper hours? Well, Carol, your wish is my command. Carol! You're the boss. As old Neil Sedaka used to say, oh, Carol, you're my only love. Let me tell you that not a bad tune. Neil Sedaka, underrated. What we're going to do next with the Chagos Islands giveaway and the fury of the White House as the UK does not allow America to use UK air bases to launch a strike on Iran. Is this the first government in history that's working against the British national interest? Is Keir Starmer the enemy of the British people. That's next.
Breaking news in the last couple of moments. Extraordinary news. The police have arrested Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. It's his 66th birthday today. What a birthday present that is.
Mr. Mandarin, how long do you think that you can stay on the island?
We're going to stay forever. Our rights have to be respected now. We're going to stay.
Do you expect Jeremy Clarkson to become a part of your new party?
I can tell you, if Jeremy Clarkson decided to darken my doorstep, I would be absolutely delighted.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
8:18, and let me tell you on Talk Breakfast, Betty's not pulling her punches. Good morning, Mark. Labour have so much Mandelson filth. That's why Brown is out, also trying to distract, talking about Andrew and trash the Royals. All of Blair's cabinet, Brown's cabinet, Labour since 2000 are contaminated by Mandelson and Epstein, and all have to be removed and investigated. All policies and acts made by law by Brown and Labour with Mandelson involved need to be revoked. There you go. Betty not happy. Fancy getting in a twist over Andy's mental health, says Gary. I bet those abused have deeper mental health issues. There you go. Thank you for that. I'll get to more of your thoughts shortly, but let's have a look at the Chagos Islands. An interesting story in the Telegraph, a suggestion, Phil, that the Defence Secretary John Healey misled members of Parliament in regard to the legal threat facing the Chagos Islands giveaway. What's the story?
Well, apparently, Healey told MPs last May that the UK could face legal rulings within weeks, was the quote, citing potential action at the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea. And so, of course, now that he's sort of been accused of misleading Parliament over such claims. Look, I think when it comes to the Chagos Islands, it's very simple. I don't think many people had even heard of Chagos before this government came to power, to be honest with you. But one thing I do know is that it is blindingly obvious to anyone who can see this as someone who is obviously not involved in party politics, just a million observer, that this was obviously something that Labour had in their back pocket for a very long time, probably as some sort of token gesture for apologising for colonisation. That's what my guess would be, because I can't really see any other reason why they would think that this is remotely a good deal for the UK.
Sebastian,
here's the islands that we own, and best of all, we're going to pay you for the islands that we own to give them back to you. It makes no sense.
Most of the public don't want it, do they, Sebastian? The US don't want it. It's going to cost us $30 billion over many years. Why is this a hill that the Prime Minister wants to die on, do you think?
I'll explain why. And look, he's a former lawyer. I am a former humble law student, never quite made it into practice. But on that basis, I can see why this is important. There are certain parts of law that have no legal consequences if you break them. So, for example, the monarch has to give royal assent to any law that comes forward, whether they agree with it or not. Now, they don't legally have to do that. That is a convention. And if they decide not to, they wouldn't face any kind of punishment, but we would be in a lot of trouble because suddenly we wouldn't be able to pass any laws. This is the same on an international scale. The International Court of Justice, which is a court that rules international law, can't really enforce decisions. There is no international prison that you go to as a leader if you fail to follow international law. Now, the kind of countries that don't follow international law are your Russias, they're your Chinas, they're the kind of countries that we would not particularly consider allies. They had issued an opinion, the court, that Chagos was not legally part of the UK and must be returned. Now, if we don't follow that, we are then as bad as those countries we don't consider to be our allies. So I know on the surface of it, it looks simple. Why would we pay to give this island back? Is this all about colonisation and empire? No, it is about following the rules so that the rules may continue to exist and to serve everybody internationally.
Phil, are those speaking up against the Chagos Islands surrender guilty of wishful thinking? You know, there are treaties, there's international law, possible sanctions against us if we don't do a deal, crimes of our historic past. The bottom line is the world's a complicated place and it's got to go.
Well, I would also say that it could be worth considering trying to appeal to international law to actually say, well, actually, no, hang on a sec, just because it says this doesn't mean that you can interpret it, etc., as we know. And I'm sure that, that you know, Sebastian, based on your dealings in law, that actually law a lot of the time is open to interpretation. The reason why that it can sort of be a flip of a coin whether or not someone actually wins a case or not is based on whether or not they interpret the law to suit their particular case. And I would argue that that's all that has to happen here, is that rather than the UK graciously saying, oh, actually, we're so sorry, yes, you're quite right, we really shouldn't have ever taken Chagos in the first place, or actually they could actually argue and actually try and defend the decision as to why it's so strategically important, come up with a slightly better deal than just to say, here you go, we made a mistake. There are plenty of things that have been done incorrectly in years gone by, for goodness sake. What, has America broken international law by taking the land from Native Americans? I suspect so. Has Australia broken the law from taking it from Native Australians? Absolutely, I dare say they have. But what, you're going to start saying that now that we have to start handing back every single thing that was obtained because international law in this day and age says that something wasn't legally obtained many, many years ago? I personally think it's looking backwards, it's retrospective justice, and I personally think it's pointless.
Is it not a misguided effort on the part of this Prime Minister and his lawyer chums to atone for our colonial past?
But that isn't what's going on here. This has nothing to do with with atonement. It's about doing the right thing by an international court and
handing the Chagos Islands to Mauritius, who have never owned them. Make that make sense.
Well, this is exactly it, and that's almost proof that it's not part of any kind of colonial atonement. It's just about doing what an international court says.
Well,
it's really that simple.
I don't think that Starmer and Hermer and all his posh lawyer mates, when they go to dinner parties in Islington, they don't like countries that have got a small Union Jack in the corner of the flag.
I don't think that's necessarily true.
They're ashamed of that.
I don't think that's necessarily true. Look, history is history and some appalling things happened, but we are where we are, and you can't go redrawing the map because of that. You can't then return every overseas British overseas territory to its former colonial master, as the case may be, or to the indigenous people. That's just not a route you can go down.
Here's another confusing thing. Riddle me this. Why have the progressive left abandoned the Chagosians, who, let's not forget, were evicted from those islands in the 1960s by a Labour government? These are predominantly poor black people that have been completely ignored by a political constituency in the left who normally would be supporting them.
Yeah, look, I think this is an issue where many of them never lived there. It is hugely complicated in terms of self-determination, in terms of jurisdiction, and this is purely about following a international judgment. It's about doing the right thing in that sense. I would want to see the wishes of the Chagosian people fulfilled, but Do we have a collective view on that? I don't think we do. They're a disparate people. They don't carry one opinion. So it's impossible to...
do you think the international judgment is wrong in this instance? So this clearly some Supremo has decided that the UK is wrong. Do you agree with them?
So I'm in no position to challenge a judge at the International Court of Justice. If
You're allowed an opinion, though.
Well, of course I'm allowed an opinion.
So what is your opinion? Do you think he's wrong?
I've not read the judgment, so I can't pass judgment on that.
All right, from what we know about it, do you think it's wrong?
Well, it's not a case of what we know or what we don't know. The point is that I haven't read that judgment in full, so I'd be very silly to pass an opinion on something that I haven't read.
Right.
And my opinion doesn't matter. I mean, I can give it to you.
I can make what this programme is for.
Well, yes, in theory, but if I give opinions about things that I'm not fully versed on, that would be really silly of me.
Well, there are plenty of people who give opinions, say, for example, the situation on the Middle East, and they're not fully versed on that.
They maybe shouldn't do that.
Absolutely. So I don't really think that sort of it boils down to whether or not sort of someone has read some sort of judgment. We can see at surface value what's going on here. The UK has been told by international courts that we have to hand the Chagos Islands back over to another country, and as a result of it, I'm asking, do you agree with that particular thought?
But that's the issue. I'm not going to have this debate at surface level without either of us having read the judgment. It's the same as you asking me what my analysis is of the Brothers Karamazov. I haven't read the Brothers Karamazov, and I'm not going to make it up based on a Wikipedia entry.
It's boring and very long. Sebastian, if we speak more broadly, and I totally agree with you about the complexity of this, and I don't think it has to be left versus right, because I had an ex-Tory MP on the show yesterday who said that we've got to do this deal, our hands are tied. He supports the Prime Minister. So, and this is a guy that was, very well connected to the defence policy platform of the last government. So, no problem there. But this is a deal that China wants and America do not. Is that a red flag?
Look, I think usually it probably would be. But America right now, where do their interests lie? I think we've seen time and time again that they are not aligned with ours.
Peace, and that's where America are.
Well, I'm not quite so sure about that.
How many peace deals has Donald struck since he became
Absolutely.
president?
I was going to say, I think he's the most peace-loving president that we've ever seen, to be honest.
I would question whether he is acting in the international interest or in the American interest.
No, he's absolutely acting in American interest, and good on him.
And the American interest and world peace do not always align, as we've seen throughout merely the 20th century, when quite a lot of oil changed hands. And that was not in the pursuit of peace.
I only wish that we had a leader who cared as much about this country as Donald Trump cares about his country. That's all I can say.
Well, we do. We just have one who's not prepared to break the rules to do it, and that's where I take issue with Trump.
No, he doesn't care about this country. He's already said he prefers Davos to it's just...
Sorry, what?
He prefers Davos to any sort of...
Did he say that? In an interview before the election, they said, where would you rather sort of be politically, where you can make a difference, Westminster or Davos? And he said Davos.
OK, so he thinks you can make more of a difference in Davos. He doesn't say he prefers Davos to Britain. Those are two very different things.
Well, I'll tell you what we'll do. Ryan, dig out that clip if you get a chance, or at least give me the direct quote of what he was asked and what he was said.
Look, the bottom line is...
We should dig into that, if so.
The bottom line is that, as far as I can tell, certainly from his actions, it would suggest that Keir Starmer doesn't love this country quite as much as Donald Trump loves his country. Is that a fair comment?
On what basis?
On the basis of actions. Since coming to government.
What actions?
Well, how long have you got? So you want us to carry on the whole show, literally listing every single thing?
Give it to me in 3 sentences. Just give me a summary.
Abandoning pensioners over Winterfield's statements, what his government is trying to do to the justice system of this country, his attitude towards illegal migration, where we are being invaded in this... How much do you want me to carry on?
And so you're not concerned about Trump's ICE agents shooting people on the streets of America?
I am more concerned that we don't have ICE agents in this country doing very similar things, threatening people who threaten our security.
So you would want people on the streets of Britain shooting British citizens?
Not British citizens, no.
So you would want people on the streets of Britain shooting people who are living here?
Illegally, I would want them to be removed, and if they refuse to go, if they're going to pose a threat to our security, then I don't see why we should care about their security.
OK, so you think we should be shooting illegal immigrants in Britain?
No, I didn't say that.
No, well, I'm trying to clarify. So you don't think we should shoot illegal immigrants? Who do you think we should shoot?
I didn't say we should shoot anyone. You're the one saying we should shoot people.
Okay, I'm confused now, because a moment ago you said that we should have people on the streets of Britain shooting people.
No, I didn't. I said we should have people on the streets of Britain who are removing those who are here illegally.
Okay, but ICE agents aren't removing people. ICE agents are shooting and killing people. And
yes,
that's where
those
my
who mainly are getting in their way of doing their jobs.
Okay, so you think that it's okay to shoot people in Britain if they get in the way of somebody doing their job?
I think people should be allowed to be removed from Britain if they're here illegally.
No. We're not talking about removing people. We're talking specifically,
that's exactly what ICE agents
specifically about shooting people dead, which is also what ICE agents are doing.
But you're suggesting ICE agents are doing that for fun rather than actually the bigger picture of
No, that's incorrect. I'm suggesting the fact purely that they are doing it and people are dying as a result.
Yes.
Would you be comfortable with the same thing happening in Britain?
Why are those people dying, though? They're not dying because ICE agents are saying, oh, look, here's a random person, let's just shoot them and see what's happening. No, they're doing it because these individuals are really quite die-hard leftist liberals who, frankly, have probably got their brains elsewhere in their body, who have decided that they're going to stand in the way of ICE agents legitimately removing people who are there illegally. And I would say that actually if they didn't do that, they'd probably still be alive.
So it's the fault of the people who were shot dead that they were shot dead?
Absolutely.
Wow, okay, great.
Well, Sebastian, I think that you may be conflating the actions of ICE officers with the policy. And I think they're two separate things. We can, I think, all agree that it's a tragedy that 2 people have died in the process of the ICE agents doing their work. A tragedy. It's also possible that they broke the law in doing so. It's possible that they will lose their careers and their freedom. And it's very similar to, in this country, if you've got cops who are armed and they are able to keep law and order, if they cross a line in the pursuit of law and order, they too will be investigated, potentially stripped of their badge and potentially imprisoned. So you do get cops that go too far, are heavy-handed, and they're in trouble. So I think what's happened with the ICE agents is that they may have crossed the line, and it's an enormous tragedy. But that's separate from a policy of removing known murderers, rapists and paedophiles from a country that shouldn't be there.
But has Trump come out and condemned the shooting dead of those people by the ICE agents?
I don't think he has.
Well, there we go. So you have a duty as the leader of that country to take a position on an action like that. And the silence there, I think, is very, very telling.
So do you really see no wrong? OK, let's say hypothetically, right, that because, again, I don't think any of us know sort of exactly what happened. None of us were there at the time. But let's say hypothetically that there is no doubt about it. The individuals who were shot by ICE agents were being obstructive, were trying to stop them from doing their job, all because they've got this deluded view that everyone should be allowed to go wherever the heck they want in the world, and it doesn't matter what kind of security threat that poses to that country. If they were standing in their way and stopping the ICE agents doing their job, possibly even trying to get violent with them, you don't actually sort of see that they've done anything wrong?
So I think in general...
Maybe not worthwhile getting shot dead, but anything wrong at all?
Responding with proportionate action is always reasonable.
But what would be proportionate?
This seems not shooting someone dead.
Is fair enough. OK, let's agree with that. Okay. Shooting is obviously quite a dramatic thing to do.
Yes.
But what I'm trying to get at is that do you really see no fault on the part of those who were shot dead, if indeed they were being obstructive to the ICE agents' jobs, which at the end of the day, they were just doing what they're paid to do.
Especially if one of those people was armed with 2 cassettes of extra ammunition on his person.
Well, again, I think it comes down to a proportionate response, and that depends on the situation.
I agree, but that's execution of the policy and maybe a failure of 2 cops. That's not the principle of removing harmful people that shouldn't be in America, and I think many of my viewers and listeners would love the same here.
One of the individuals...
Would you not like rapists, murderers and paedophiles to be removed from Britain?
It depends who they are.
Okay, illegal immigrants and they're a murderer.
Oh, okay.
Would you like them gone?
So if you've come here illegally...
Yeah. And then you kill someone.
And you kill someone.
You kill Auntie Mary.
You should be deported.
Oh, my God. We found a point of agreement. Yeah. I think we should crack open a bottle of...
I was going to say, we peaked too early.
Well, what it means is great news. Salek wants ICE agents here. May God bless him. This is Talk Breakfast.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
I'm going to get back to your feedback shortly, but my laptop has just run out of power, so let me fire it up shortly. Shall we slam a voice note? Dave, what is the topic of Laura's... Oh, it's on Andrew. Thank you for that. OK, brilliant. Here is Laura voice note. Are you worried about Prince Andrew? Has he suffered enough? This is Laura.
This Andrew saga, isn't it amazing how all eyes are on Andrew? Andrew that's hidden away now, that can't hurt anyone else. What about all the eyes instead being on all these grooming gangs operating in this country? Isn't it amazing how nothing is being said about them at the moment? And that is continuing.
Brilliant. Thank you for that voice note, Laura. And I will not allow any distractions from the problems facing this country in the context of Andrew. Yes, we can talk about Prince Andrew. We can also talk about non-existent growth. We can talk about stubborn inflation, which, yes, Sebastian has come down, but is too high. We can talk about rising youth unemployment, the highest in Europe. We can talk about the Pakistani Muslim rape gangs. You're absolutely right, Laura, and thank you for cracking the whip on that one. I always want you to crack the whip with me on this show, that if we're not talking about what we need to, let me know and I'll do it. Why? Because you're the boss. I've got a lovely boss who's handsome and clever, but I also have you, and you're the ultimate boss. This is Rob with another voice note on Prince Andrew, ex-Prince Andrew, I should say.
I wish they had given as much energy and attention to Starmer regarding the Mandelston appointment and cover-up and lies. I wish they'd gone, on such a witch hunt against Starmer, because it just seems to be now every single damn news channel is about Andrew. There's loads more going on in this country that needs to be talked about, and it's getting very boring now. There's no more news to report, Why can't we focus on the failings of this rotten government? I think that should be the focus, not on Andrew anymore for the time being,
Well, let's do that. I've got a couple of messages coming in. Thank you, Phil, for handing me the phone. Linda says, bloody hell, Mark, your guest, Sebastian, is just like the interview with Sadiq Khan about the grooming gangs. Very annoyed, says Linda in Staley Bridge.
Oh, Linda.
Mark in Croydon says...
You've made a friend.
Well, yeah. Always do when I come in here.
Yeah.
I would be
Can't
the first...
understand why.
Yikes. Mark in Croydon, I would be the first applying to be an ICE agent if it meant an end to areas of the UK being turned into dangerous third world countries, all under the guise of it's our community. Sharon, 15 billion quid paid to migrants' homes, but this useless government will not pay the £10 billion that's owing to the WASPy women. I'll get to more of your feedback shortly. Very interesting to hear what you've got to say. Perhaps just this from Sarah, who says, good morning, Mark. Your guest, Sebastian, is very childish and perfectly demonstrates the sixth form politics that are destroying our country. You're discussing politics. 2 people get shot in America. 2 people. How many were removed legitimately? And he's saying Trump should be apologising. No, Trump didn't shoot them. Trump should be running the country for the Americans, which is what he's doing. Well, let me tell you that half of the country agree passionately with Sebastian, including the over 9 million people that voted Labour at the last election.
Good balance, I like it.
It's true. It's a provable fact. Plenty of people will vote Labour at the next election, although enough for an overall majority. Who knows?
We hope so.
Listen, maybe if they put you in their shadow cabinet. Maybe if they put you... You're the future, aren't you, of the Labour Party?
Oh, I don't know if I'm the future of the Labour Party.
Of course you are.
I'll continue haunting your airwaves,
The only reason why I'm nice to you is because you'll be in the cabinet one day. And I want you on Talk Breakfast.
That's the point, actually. I better be nice just in case I'm arrested.
No, not the life for me, I don't think.
But listen, it's all about opinions, and that's what we passionately support on this show. So Jim Ratcliffe's got a strong opinion.
Oh, he does.
Hasn't he? Just a couple of weeks ago, he did an interview with Sky, and he said that Britain has been colonised by immigration and that there's almost 10 million people who are on benefits, who are of working age. It's not affordable. Let's take a listen. Thank you, Ryan. We'll have a clip here.
You can't have an economy with 9 million people on benefits and huge levels of immigrants coming in. I mean, the UK is being colonised. It's costing too much money. It will cause... It'll cause... Well, the UK is being colonised by immigrants, really, isn't it? I mean, the population of the UK was 58 million in 2020. Now it's 70 million. That's 12 million people.
Well, Manchester United co-owner Sir Jim Ratcliffe has now received an update on a potential investigation by the FA. He will not be charged by the Football Association over a controversial interview in which he claimed that the UK had become colonised by immigrants. The governing body of football has issued him with a reminder of his responsibilities as a participant in English football when taking part in media interviews. Does he need to think, Sebastian, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, about his responsibilities when making such remarks?
Definitely. That was incredibly incendiary language. And not only was it factually untrue, it was also deeply offensive. And I think if you want to be involved with a noble profession such as football, then you should be thinking very carefully about the language you use. There are multiple reasons why that's the case, not least because football itself is an incredibly proudly diverse sport, and all the better for it, whether you are of foreign heritage playing for England or whether you are a foreign player playing in our leagues. You make our football what it is. There's a reason you can go to the middle of Africa, drop a pin, and there's a child wearing a Manchester United t-shirt. That gives me incredible pride, despite not being a Man U fan myself. And that is due to the fact that we have this wonderfully diverse footballing culture. Now, I find it also deeply ironic that Jim Ratcliffe himself has been an immigrant. He has lived in Monaco, a country where less than a quarter of people living there are Monacans. So if anywhere has been colonised by immigrants, and we must use the word colonise incredibly carefully because it's not true in this sense either, I'd urge him to look at his former domicile rather than his home nation.
Sinister language, though, from the FA, Phil, where the co-owner of Manchester United, one of the richest men in the country, needs to be aware of his responsibilities. What does that mean?
Well, I think he is aware of his responsibilities, and I don't actually think his opinion's got anything to do with his responsibilities personally. That's just my humble. But in terms of what he has said, yeah, you're right. Obviously, it's not factually true yet that the UK has been colonised by migration, but there is a real danger of losing British society and British identity once and for all if we really don't get a grip on things sooner rather than later. And I think he has a perfectly valid point when he says you cannot have 9 million people on benefits. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that the word that people are most upset about is colonised, and it's for a couple of reasons. Number one is because at the moment it is factually untrue, and then of course there are those who are so apologetic for the way the British people over the centuries have colonised other countries that they think, oh my goodness me, no, sorry, we're the ones who are doing the colonising.
Well, we were.
No one else could possibly do it. And I just think that sort of people are burying their heads in the sand if they don't realise that we are in real danger of losing, I think, to be honest, a massive chunk of Britain has already been lost. The identity. I was watching a couple of programmes because, very long story short, another broadcaster is celebrating an anniversary at the moment, and a lot of old programmes have been put out again in celebration of that. And as I was watching it, the makeup of Britain was very, very different as recently as, say, 20, 30 years ago. And I am not convinced that all the changes we've seen over those 20, 30 years have been for the better. So as far as I'm concerned, I understand why Sir Jim Ratcliffe, if you are the kind of person who would be nostalgic over the way Britain used to be, I can understand why he's upset.
So what's changed for the worse?
Well, no doubt about it. So we've lost an awful lot of British culture that we once took for granted. Well, for example, pubs are shutting left, right and centre. The Great British Pub is a massive part
So
of
hang on, you
British
think pubs
culture.
are closing because of immigrants?
No, I think that pubs are closing on a number of reasons, but there are a great number of people, for example, who are now living in this country that never used to live here, where very much the pub wasn't part of their culture, and that's just part of it. We could go into more fine detail.
So you don't think that immigrants are the reason pubs are closing?
I think it is part of, not completely exclusively, the reason.
Okay, because I would argue it's high rents and landlords charging pub owners through the...
There is an element of that as well.
I think that's the big element, really. And I think if you're trying to drag immigrants into it, you're frankly grasping.
No. One of the big... don't get me started on what I could drag immigrants into.
Well, go on. What else could you drag immigrants into?
Right, the state of the NHS. How about that?
They're running the NHS, Phil.
Some are.
But the majority.
But why are they doing that? Let's look at that. Is that because of government policy that said we don't want to pay British doctors and nurses the correct salary, and therefore we're just going to import cheap labour?
Yeah,
instead?
we'll probably agree on this. We should be training people homegrown.
Okay, so that's one of the reasons. So as much as I understand the idea that those who are immigrants are, quote-unquote, running the NHS, it is not necessarily for a good reason that they are. It could be very bad
if they disappeared
policy.
overnight, as some people would like them to do, and some people have advocated for them to do politically, the NHS would collapse.
Well, the NHS is on its knees already.
No, but it would collapse. It would be non-existent, wouldn't it, for all the immigrants
but
there?
less is what we also need to keep in mind.
Hang on, wouldn't it?
Is that what you answer questions as well, right?
Well, no, I'm just asking you a question. Wouldn't the NHS collapse?
No, it wouldn't. But
sorry,
the reason...
No, let's just zero in on that.
Hang on a second.
If all of the immigrants left the NHS overnight... No, I'm asking you a question here.
Okay.
If all of the immigrants left the NHS overnight, would the NHS collapse?
No.
Why not?
I tell you why.
Fascinating.
Okay, well, I'm pleased you find it fascinating, because I also think it's a fascinating subject. The main reason I believe that is because you also need to consider what would happen to the actual the demand on the NHS if those who were foreign-born nationals instantly overnight stopped using the NHS as well. Because if you were to go into an NHS waiting room, I think it is fair comment to say there are an awful lot of people who are not necessarily British nationals who are also entitled to use it. And I have a major problem with that because British taxpayers are paying for it.
Could I just understand your argument? You're saying that if all foreign nationals left, the NHS would stay standing.
Which they obviously wouldn't, and they shouldn't.
No, but hypothetically, the NHS would stay standing because foreigners would leave running it, but foreigners would also leave using it.
There is an element of that, but you also need to
Do you have any evidence to back that up?
No, what are you talking about, evidence to back it up?
Well, you're making a very concrete claim there.
Right.
And I'm asking if you have any evidence to back up that.
So you think there's no truth in that at all?
Well, I'm asking for evidence in favour of that argument.
I clearly
You've posited an argument, and I'm now asking you to back it up with something.
Right, OK. Well, I'll back it up with if you walk into the middle of an NHS hospital in the middle of London, you'll probably get all the evidence.
OK, so no, I'm asking for data, really, rather than anecdotes.
OK, would you like me to step out and go and look up the data right here, right now? Because I didn't know we were going to have this conversation.
You'd be very welcome to, Phil, but the issue is if you're going to make an assertion, you have to back it up with some facts rather than pure vibes.
No,
but that's the crucial thing.
OK, I tell you why that people say you have to back it up with evidence is because that's the only retort. What I've said warrants you to actually look at what's going on with this country and to say, do you know what, maybe there are people who are on the right who do have a point. Maybe people like Sir Jim Ratcliffe actually does know what he's talking about when he's deeply concerned by what's happening to this country. I'm not the only one who's deeply concerned by what's happening to this country. Sir Jim Ratcliffe's not the only one. So you're telling me that every single person who thinks there is a major problem with mass migration in this country and the damage it has caused to all of our services, all our infrastructure, you don't think there's any validity to that whatsoever, and your argument is, where's the data to prove it?
You're mustering an awful lot of words to cover for the fact that you've made a statement that you cannot back up with any evidence.
I don't care if I can't back it up with evidence. It's how I feel. It's how many people feel.
Well, Phil, I think
I literally don't care.
Just to put it in context, I think what you're saying is if you go into a city centre hospital, you will see a large number of minority ethnic Brits using the NHS.
Okay, well, I tell you what, let's look at it another way, shall we? Where is your evidence that the NHS would collapse if all immigrants were to leave tomorrow?
Well,
where's your evidence?
My evidence is this. The fact that immigrants make up a large chunk of the workforce...
How much?
I don't know.
There we go.
I'm going to find out for you.
Guys,
so isn't this exactly the point I'm getting at? Is the argument is, where's your evidence to prove what you say? But yes, actually, when you make a claim, it's OK. And I didn't actually challenge you. I didn't put you on the spot like that. And I think that's actually quite inappropriate.
I'm going to answer your question now. 21% of NHS staff in England are not British.
Perfect.
So if they were to disappear,
the NHS would collapse?
I think the NHS, as any organisation would, if you removed 80% of their... if you remove 20% of their workforce overnight, the NHS would collapse.
OK, well, I don't think it would.
Can I say, lads, that I think we've gone down a slight rabbit hole here.
We have.
And I'll tell you for why. Because actually the debate is not Britain's multi-ethnic society, which is what it is now, Britain's multi-ethnic society. That's not going to be reversed. And there are plenty,
why should it be?
Nor should it be. Plenty of people that don't think it should be. So that's fine, exactly. And I'm one of those people. So, but I think what Ratcliffe was talking about was the scale of immigration, which we could blame the Tories for. You know, 1 million people in a year, that's insane. Illegal boat crossings, 70k people since Starmer came to power. This is what Ratcliffe's talking about. He's talking about integration. You do have people coming from other cultures who do not subscribe to British values. If you look at the weekly peace marches, they don't subscribe to the rule of law. And that's what he was talking about. And of course, he's absolutely right.
If your argument is that immigration should be managed, then I would completely agree with you.
And with an expectation of integration and a contribution to the economy.
Of course.
And would you accept that where we've gone with immigration, we don't do that anymore?
Well, because immigration has arguably moved too quickly.
Right.
And I do think
another moment of agreement.
Well,
I could get used to this.
I think anybody who comes here and doesn't integrate
smoke
isn't
a cigar
doing
in the
it
studio.
properly. but look, I am a champion for immigrants who do come here and integrate because they have improved my life and they've improved the lives of people around me.
it's another point of agreement.
Is that a controversial opinion? I don't think it is.
It's brilliant. It'll get you cancelled from the Labour Party. What we're talking,
we all think that. We all think that.
What we're talking about is that female police officer that's in. I don't know where she was actually geographically. It might have been East London, but she's telling a group of British Muslim lads that there's a guy that can preach the Christian scripture, and they were saying no, it's hate speech, and he must be removed. That's the problem.
Yeah. Well, I tell you the other problem as well is that actually we need to wake up and realise that there is nothing wrong with patriotism. There's nothing wrong with saying that we look back with rose-tinted spectacles on how wonderful this country used to be about 30 years ago, and the immigration policies over the last several decades have completely and utterly changed the face of Britain. If you're upset by that, it doesn't make you a racist, it makes you very proud to be British.
Sebastian, last word.
I think you can be proud to be British as I am, and a champion of diversity and of well-managed immigration as I am, and a product of immigration as I am. I am proud to be, in many ways, without tooting my horn too much, part of the new image of Britain. Both of my parents came to this country, and long may those who do the same succeed.
And a child of immigration as well.
Fantastic.
It's turned into the four Yorkshiremen. When I were a lad, 8:51. Lads, thank you very much for joining us. A great debate. Sebastian Salek, Labour councillor and commentator. Phil Dave, talk legend. I can't lie.
Legend, more folks, like, but yes.
So much more to get through. We're going to talk about Keir Starmer next. That's right, not Prince Andrew. We're going to talk about the Prime Minister. Is he doing a good or a bad job? 8:52. Talk Breakfast.
Breaking news in the last couple of moments. Extraordinary news. The police have arrested Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. It's his 66th birthday today. What a birthday present that is.
Mr. Mandarin, how long do you think that you can stay on the island?
We're going to stay forever. Our rights have to be respected now. We're going to stay.
Do you expect Jeremy Clarkson to become a part of your new party?
I can tell you, if Jeremy Clarkson decided to darken my doorstep, I would be absolutely delighted.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Dolan's Dispatch coming at 9 a.m. Is the Prince Andrew scandal a distraction from Keir Starmer and what he's doing to the country? Lenny is in Ashford. Good morning, Lenny.
Good morning, Mark.
How are things in Ashford today?
Yeah, well, I'm tickety-boo, thank you, mate. Everything is nice and I'm feeling top of the world.
Now, listen, I've had my wrist slapped by many of my viewers and listeners today, Lenny, because they've said, listen, why are you talking about Andrew so much? Why aren't you talking about the Pakistani Muslim rape gangs? Why aren't you talking about the economy? Why aren't you talking about the Chagos Islands giveaway?
Well, we all know that Starmer's using Andrew as a diversion. I mean, we're all this about his eighth in line. It's only a diversion to take away the bad publicity that he's getting. So that is plain and simple. Now, regarding Jim, I phoned up about Jim Ratcliffe, and everything he has said is totally true. And the people are getting annoyed because he's said it's what's happening in Britain. But the truth is, it happens in every country in the world.
Well, you raise a good point.
Yeah, birds of a feather flock together. And it's where, if you look, we've got 9 of our biggest cities are controlled by Muslims. There it is in black and white.
Now, when you say 9 of our cities are controlled by Muslims, are you talking about the representation of British Muslim politicians in local authorities and councils?
Yes, we've got 9 Muslim mayors in our British cities. If you like, I'll read them out to you.
Go for it.
London, Birmingham, Leeds, Blackburn, Oxford, Luton, Sheffield, Oldham and Rochdale.
And now, Lenny, why does it matter? Because it could be a Catholic, it could be a Jewish person, it could be a Quaker, it could be a Scientologist.
Yes, but what it is, of all the religions in this country, the ones that have got nothing in common with Christianity is Islam.
Well, I mean, Judaism doesn't have much in common with Christianity. Was it Benjamin Disraeli was a Jewish prime minister back in the day?
Yes, but...
Rishi Sunak, remember him? He was a Hindu. By the way, I'd love him back. I'd do anything to get Rishi back. But go on.
Yes, but with the Jews, we have lived in peace with them for many years. They've never been a problem to us.
But Lenny, is there a difference? And I hear you. But is there a difference between radical Islamists who support terror and mainstream moderate British Muslims, people like Zia Youssef, who is the shadow Home Secretary for Reform?
Yes, but what it is, the problem is that the ones that are causing all the problem are causing a war in our country.
Like a civil war.
We are very close to a war in our country.
And are you talking about sort of you mean like sectarian violence? We saw it, didn't we, in Birmingham, where some Jewish fans from Israel couldn't come over and support Maccabi Tel Aviv because local politicians in Birmingham said, we don't want them here.
But that's right. See, that's where the Muslims have got control. Birmingham is one of the cities I've just spoken about. They are in control of a big city in England.
And Lenny, what would you say to those listening who think that you are Islamophobic or racist?
Well, I'm a true Englishman and a patriot, but is there the bit that makes me mad? Muslims are more against Christianity, which is our country. There is more Christianophobia about than what there are against Muslims, but it's never penalised.
Well, the issue you got, there is an issue within some Muslim communities about intolerance of other faiths, and I think that is a concern that community needs to look at, Lenny. Definitely.
Yeah, well, this is
an intolerance and a hatred.
Well, I would say why I know. I used to spend an awful lot of time in Spain. Now,
I tell you what, Lenny, give me another call. We'll talk about your experience in Spain. To be continued. Lenny's in Ashford. More to come. Dolan's Dispatch is next. Thank you, Lenny.
Just breaking news in the last couple of moments. Extraordinary news. Not just that the police have arrived at the Sandringham estate where Prince Andrew, as was now Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, is currently living since being thrown out of the Windsor estate. The police have arrested Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. It's an extraordinary revelation and development on this story involving the Epstein files and all the allegations that have been swirling around about Andrew over the many years, from Virginia Giuffre, now sadly deceased, and since then, and certainly what's been contained in the Epstein files as released in the last few weeks. But the police have arrived at Sandringham estate this morning, where Andrew has made his new home. It's his 66th birthday today. What a birthday present that is. He has been arrested by the police. Of course, the brother of the current king, the second son of our late Queen Elizabeth. This is an extraordinary development. Those of us who've been talking an awful lot about establishment cover-ups and lack of, should we say, interest by the police in what are very, very serious allegations against Andrew. Perhaps pleased that that pressure has finally been put on the police, and they have done the job of actually looking into these issues seriously. Must bear in mind, of course, that the Prince has not been charged with any crime at this point, and he has always denied any wrongdoing in relation to any of the allegations about him. We'll give you more on that. We'll talk to you about that throughout the show, but I'm just being told that the arrest has been on suspicion of misconduct in public office. This, of course, relates to those Epstein file allegations and the documents that, if they are true, would suggest that he had, it is alleged, passed on basically what was confidential government information when he was the UK trade envoy for this country for 10 years to Jeffrey Epstein for Jeffrey Epstein's financial gain.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
You're listening to Talk Breakfast. Mark Dolan with you until 10 a.m. Lovely to have your company. Breaking this morning, we are hearing that palace officials and the government are working together to remove Andrew Mountbatten Windsor from the line of succession. We've got an extraordinary scenario in which, may God forbid, if there was a couple of air crashes, if a helicopter were to go down and a couple of ships to sink, Andrew would be our king. Is this the right move? And given the fact that Andrew has been found guilty of no crime, has he suffered enough? Do you worry about Andrew? Is he a safeguarding risk? Is he a man more sinned against than sinning? My number is 0344 499 1000. Text the word TALK and your message to 87222. Leave us a voice note, and as the saying goes, let's talk. Now, I'm delighted to say that you can watch our television output. The brilliant Luke is directing the content as we speak. So all you got to do, head to YouTube, search Talking Up. We pop, you'll see my amazing guests, you'll see Dolan's Dispatch, and you'll get all of the action. And it really is a stunning television product now. You can also hear us on DAB+ in app and online. The brilliant Ryan Thrussell is the executive producer of today's show, doing a great job. I think you'll notice the lift-in quality. Engineer Dave is pressing the buttons. We couldn't do it without him. This place is held together by Dave sticky tape and hope. And taking your calls, 03444991000. Give Tommy a call. Let's put you on the radio and on the telly. And as the saying goes, let's talk. And we'll kick off, as always, at this time, 5 minutes past 9 on a Saturday morning with Dolan's Dispatch. What about that police statement? A man in his 60s from Norfolk. How the mighty have fallen, once the Queen's favourite son. Andrew was the best-looking member of the family, a bona fide war hero who served with courage and distinction in the Falklands. Andrew was an attractive, famous, rich and gentrified man. He could attract any girl he wanted without the assistance of a crooked billionaire. And the excitement around his wedding to Sarah Ferguson at the time gave the nuptials of Diana and Charles a run for their money. The guy had the world at his feet. But what followed was a seismic and protracted downfall of someone who had everything and now has nothing. The allegations surrounding Andrew incorporate money, national security, international business, state secrets and sex. And what we've witnessed in the last 48 hours may be the tip of the iceberg. His plush accommodation in the Sandringham estate may be replaced with a cell in His Majesty's prison. Ironically, that means that either way his brother is responsible for his accommodation, though if he winds up in jail, it will be less salubrious accommodation. The problem with this story is that none of these alleged crimes, and we must stress that Andrew denies everything and you're innocent until proven guilty. But the problem with these alleged crimes is that they could not have happened if Andrew was a commoner. What we're seeing around these allegations is the potential abuse of power of a man who was privileged, deified, placed on a pedestal. Like every other leading member of the royal family, Andrew was one of the untouchables. And that must end. And it must end now. This problem goes beyond Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. He is a symptom of a shadowy, unaccountable institution. Ultimately, with money, with inherited riches, with privilege, with status, with fame, with titles, there comes power. And you know as well as I do that with absolute power, you have absolute corruption. Now, I've got to tell you at 7 minutes past 9 on a Saturday morning that I'm worried about Andrew. I don't like him. I won't defend him. He denies the allegations, but there is such a volume of serious allegations that face him that the guy is in hot water. I don't like him, I won't defend him, but I'm worried about him. That photograph of him in the back of a chauffeur-driven limousine was truly chilling. A haunted man, ghost-like, a rabbit in the headlights. And it's my view that whilst he must have his day in court and face down his accusers, and whilst it's very clear that he's a stupid man, an arrogant man, and a man of extraordinary poor judgment, he's a human being. You're innocent until proven guilty, and it's my fear that he's in a dark place. And I think, therefore, it is of utmost importance that the king safeguards his brother, that he feeds and waters him, that he's got accommodation, a roof over his head, that he's got armed security, because he's still a member of the royal family. And it's very important that he stays on this planet to face justice. Now, as with all crises, good can come from this. For our monarchy to survive, which I pray with every cell in my body that it will, it must radically change. We need to cut away the dead wood, the spares, the hangers-on, the crooks and the shirkers. And here's another thing. It's time that the king spoke to the nation. Enough already with these press releases about the law must have its course. We need something more robust from the king. He must speak to everybody that keeps him in his position, that pays his bills. And it's time to him to face down these accusations and to show a bit of accountability. There's an old saying, isn't there, within royal circles? Never complain, never explain. Well, Call me old-fashioned, King Charles, but it is actually time for us to complain, and it's time for you to explain. 9:10 Talk Breakfast. Carl is in London. Good morning, Carl.
Oh, good morning. Yeah, call me suspicious, but number 10 wants to take Andrew's succession from the throne. Now, he's not been found guilty of anything. He's not been charged with anything. So, call me suspicious. Is there something they know at number 10 or in the royal household that they're not telling us? Are they hiding something from us?
Well, I wonder about that. What do you think is going on, Carl?
Well, I think they know more than they let on. To say they're going to take the succession of the throne from him when he's not actually been found guilty of anything.
Now, that is fascinating. So for you, the decision by the palace authorities and the government to remove him from the line of succession, that tells you there's a smoking gun?
I think there is. I don't think they're letting us know exactly what's what, to be honest with you. As I say, to make a statement from number 10 that they're going to try and take succession to the throne, seems to me they know something. And the other thing about this, Starmer must be loving this because it's taken all the heat off of him and Mandelson. No one's talking about him and Mandelson. It's all down to Andrew. And the Prime Minister wants to take the succession. I mean,
Mandelson is up to his neck in it.
And Starmer knew about it. So why don't they take Starmer in for questioning? No one's above the law, apparently, according to Starmer.
Well, you're absolutely right. And whilst I talk about accountability within the royal family, Carl, and I would like the King to address the nation, I wouldn't mind a little bit of accountability from number 10 too.
Exactly. Spot on.
So how do you see this playing out? Do you think that Andrew will wind up in prison?
I'm not sure about that. It all depends. He's got to be found guilty before they make a sentence. And they got to have proof that he's guilty. You might suspect somebody, but to actually have the proof, it's another thing. Now, Carl, you're not just a wise man with a good head for geopolitics. You're a human being as well. Do you think that Andrew has suffered enough? If he's guilty, then no. But if he's innocent, he's suffered too much.
And as far as we know, he is innocent.
Exactly. And that's why I say number 10 want to take succession to the throne off of him. They must know something, Mark. There must be something they know that we don't.
Or, Carl, is it just a punishment beating of a man that can't defend himself because he's in the royal family? And is he the fall guy, the whipping boy, to protect Mandelson, to protect Starmer, and to protect those rich millionaires in the United States who also have a case to answer?
I think you're probably right. And the other thing is, this is only the tip of the iceberg. There's going to be a lot more come out of it. This is just the start. But I think number 10 are using Andrew to take away the heat from Mandelson. I really do.
Well, I got to say, Carl, I agree with you. I think that is extraordinarily astute. And I think that Starmer is loving this Andrew scandal because we're talking about the King's brother, not the man that he appointed to the biggest diplomatic role in the country.
Bearing in mind, Starmer wanted to get rid of the monarchy anyway, if you look at it that way.
As a young man.
Yeah, exactly.
Carl, next question. So you're absolutely right. If Andrew's guilty, then he hasn't suffered enough. If he's not guilty, you said he's suffered too much. What do you mean by that?
Well, because they've condemned a man. I mean, look, Henry wasn't guilty of murder. 10 Rillington Place, the autistic boy, he was hung and he hadn't done anything wrong. I mean, there's a lot of suspicions, but that's all there is at the moment, suspicion. So if he's gone through the mill and he actually hasn't done anything really bad, all right, he might have had been involved with women, but if they was okay with it, there's a lot. We don't know anything yet. There's a lot more to come.
Now, Carl, I want to pick up a couple of other issues with you while I've got you on the line. First of all, I've said that I would like Charles to address the nation. What say you?
Well, there again, until Andrew's been found guilty of anything, he can't what can he say?
But why can't the king man up? Why can't he deliver that statement that he issued a couple of days ago? Why can't he eyeball the British public and tell us to our faces?
Well, I mean...
Show a little contrition for the allegations. I'm really worried about the victims. My brother has a case to answer and he will be pursued until kingdom come. I'd have been more robust than old Charlie, Carl.
I think the king knows more than he's letting us know. I think the reason he took his titles away from him, moved him out of Windsor, the king knows something and he's not telling us either.
So I'm reading between the lines, everything you're saying here, that the succession move is your view a potential smoking gun, that there's worse to come from Andrew. You think that actually his brother knows more. Is it possible that the royal family, Carl, are responsible for a cover-up? Because that is the view of Andrew Lowney, whose book entitled Brought Down Andrew last year. It's also the view of Robert Jobson, who's been in royal journalism for 35 years. A royal cover-up. What do you think?
Well, the suspicious thing is that he paid £12 million. Now, if I was accused of anything, I want my day in court to prove my innocence. You know, why give somebody £12 million and not even appear? There's something wrong there as well. I mean, I think, like I say, the royal family know more than they're letting us on, really.
Crystal ball time, Carl. What do you think happens?
Well, I think eventually he will be found guilty of some charge or other. I think that will happen. Then it's time for Charles to make a statement. But I think, I mean, Andrew's a smoking gun. Thinking of people he's been involved with, that if he said, right, I'm taking you with me, right, I'm taking everyone down. I mean, I think his life's in peril, to be honest with you. I mean...
Yeah, Carl, go on. Yeah, so you're just saying you think that actually Andrew may be a target because of what he knows. Is that what you're suggesting?
There's so many influential people that he could put the finger on. They're not, you know, when you see what happens, I mean, there's people that really want to get rid of him. There's a lot of people that, you know, want to get rid of him.
Well, it was very convenient, Carl, that Jeffrey Epstein took his own life in prison, wasn't it? That was very convenient for a lot of rich, powerful people.
And it was convenient that the girl that Andrew paid the $12 million took her own life as well.
Carl, you're not wrong. Carl, last thing, I totally agree. That's why I want Andrew to have 24/7 bodyguards, because I think he knows things, and I think he needs to be on this planet so he can share that with the authorities. One last thought, Carl. I don't like him. I won't defend him. Carl, I am worried about him because I think he's a safeguarding risk. I've looked at that picture of him in the back of the car. He looks like a haunted man. And what are your thoughts on that? Is there a risk, may God forbid, that he might do something that he regrets?
Well, there is. I think there really is, because he's gone from the top right down to low on the bottom now. But it's not only the risk that he might have upon himself to take his own life, but somebody else taking his life. And so there's two risks involved, really.
Yeah.
You know,
so what's got to, I suppose what's got to happen, there's got to be someone with him at all times, and the king is going to have to provide for his brother indefinitely.
Well, the king will have to provide. He obviously won't be able to go out and get a job. He won't be able to go out as some sort of diplomat now. So unless the king keeps him, then he won't be able to do it himself. But there again, how much money has he got in his bank? I mean, he might have enough money about sit in his new lodge and not have to worry. We don't know.
Well, I agree with you. It's funny that you should say that, Carl, because notwithstanding all the allegations that face Andrew, he's still got a much easier life than probably the vast majority of listeners and viewers to this show, who can't go to the supermarket without facing daylight robbery and spending £7 on a tub of blinking Lurpak butter. That's what a real problem looks like, isn't it? Paying the bills. When those utility bills come through, when your tax bill comes in January, when your rent goes up, when your mortgage rate goes up or is up for renewal. Carl, I really enjoyed your call. Thank you for your fascinating observations on this royal story. Karen's not happy with me. Here's a voice note. We're just going to get the line up to Karen. Lovely Karen. What we'll do it after the break. Karen does not agree. And you know something? God bless you for that, Karen, because this show is all about your opinions. We'll get those on the radio and on the telly next. 9:19 Talk Breakfast.
breaking news in the last couple of moments. Extraordinary news. The police have arrested Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. It's his 66th birthday today. What a birthday present that is.
Mr. Mandarin, how long do you think that you can stay on the island?
We're going to stay forever. Our rights have to be respected now. We're going to stay.
Do you expect Jeremy Clarkson to become a part of your new party?
I can tell you, if Jeremy Clarkson decided to darken my doorstep, I would be absolutely delighted.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
You're listening to Talk Breakfast. It is 9:22 and reacting to the big stories of the day. I'm delighted to welcome the political editor of The Sun on Sunday, Kate Ferguson. Good morning, Kate.
Good morning.
Well, the Prime Minister gets a little breather, doesn't he, as a result of the Andrew Mountbatten Windsor allegations. He's not been on the front page, and even the Mandelson issue seems to have temporarily blown over.
Yeah, it seems that with this Epstein case, it kind of swings between Mandelson and Andrew about who's in the spotlight, but very much Andrew in the spotlight today. I mean, it's astonishing, really. He's obviously been called in for questioning, released now. The police are still searching his homes, and the latest is that the government is drafting legislation to remove him from the line of succession. I think lots of your listeners will be pretty shocked he's still in that line of succession.
It's astonishing.
He obviously was stripped of his royal titles, his royal roles, but there's a kind of technicality which that piece of legislation had not been drafted and passed, and you have to take that through Parliament in order to actually remove him because of our constitution. And interestingly, I learnt this morning that actually each of the Commonwealth countries will also need to approve it. So it looks like that's going to be legislation that gets bounced around the world.
Well, most definitely, and it's going to be a fascinating and protracted process. A big reaction to our conversation around Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. Amy in Suffolk says, Mark, Andrew has children and an ex-wife, all willing to take him when he was enjoying the best life. They should be the ones looking after him now. Gary says, Mark, FFS. Stop with the crying over Andy's mental health. Nobody is delighted about being arrested. This from another. Oh, it's Sarah. The Andrew, formerly known as Prince, only has to implicate the Labour Party members or others, Muslims, and his case will be closed as they get away with everything. And how about this from an unnamed texter? Good morning. You say our opinions matter, given your claim of being the home of free speech, and yet you never read out any of my texts. What a joke. Well, I've done just that. Next time, put your name on. And what I'll do is I'll fast-track you. Whoever you are, I'll put you at the top of the list. What about this from Paul? Mark, great show normally, but for goodness sake, can you not move on to something else other than Andrew Mountbatten Windsor? It's a tricky story, isn't it? It's a challenge facing broadcasters and newspaper editors how much to cover this, but the bottom line is it's the King's younger brother and it is the mother of all scandals. I think it's a huge scandal. It's also, you know, we cover news every day, but what you're seeing on these front pages is history. You know, not for nearly a century have we had someone removed from the line of succession. That was obviously Edward with when he abdicated to marry a divorcee, and so it's kind of the combination of lots of things. This story, it's
The Epstein scandal, and at the core we need to remember those women who were abused. It's whether or not Andy did criminal wrongdoing, be it leaking official government documents to Epstein, or indeed obviously he's faced allegations of sexual misconduct. And also just a constitutional, I don't know if it's quite a constitutional crisis, but basically where you're removing someone from the line of succession. And remember, you know, when you have scandals like this rock the royal family, it tarnishes the institution of the monarchy, and it kind of paves the way for people who say, that's it, we've outgrown it, we should ditch it now, for then their kind of voices to grow louder. So it has broader repercussions than just the details of this one case.
Most definitely. Well, look, we've had a long conversation about Andrew, safeguarding, all the rest of it. I would say the majority of you have no sympathy for Andrew, and you're furious with the position that he's put the family in, not mainly, predominantly, his poor judgment of being friends with Epstein, which is at the root of all of this. What about the politics of this for the king? Because this is a family issue.
Yeah.
But it's also a political issue for him too, because he is a public figure and his handling of this is absolutely critical.
Yeah, it's the hardest thing, the hardest tightrope to walk, really, in the royal family, where you both are actual family, just like we would have brothers, sisters, cousins, but also you're a public institution and you have to, your service is to the public. I think the King's dealt with this really well so far. He put out that statement after Andrew's arrest in which he says law must be able to take its course. Sources in the palace yesterday letting it be known that if Parliament wants to remove Andrew from the line of succession, they can go right ahead. The King would have no qualms, would not stand in the way of that. And I think Charles so far has done well in making it clear that he thinks the victims need to get justice. He won't stand in the way of any police investigation. He's not kind of defending his brother as his brother, and very mindful that his public statements are about him as the king rather than anything he might feel privately about Charles the brother.
I thought the language of the statement was good, but why not address the nation on camera?
Well, that's quite an interesting question, really. I mean, the royal family just don't do that, right? But this whole scandal has raised those questions. Do they need to modernise more? Do they need to be more transparent? Do they need to give more interviews? Or is he right to kind of step back and just let the authorities investigate at the moment? I think the likelihood of Charles addressing it on camera are very low at the moment. And certainly, look, certainly there's probably little he can say beyond that statement, because police investigation is live. People will ask him various things, and all he'll say, I suspect, is, well, we need to let the police do that investigation.
Well, we're going to get onto the government in just a moment. Let's finish with a text from Dan in Kent, who says, "Good morning, Mark. You're basing Andrew's emotions on one photograph. I don't believe Andrew is on suicide watch because he's too arrogant to have those feelings. But like your caller Carl said, being bumped off is a big possibility." Karen is not happy with my Dolan's dispatch today. She doesn't agree, which is why I'm determined to put her on the radio and on the telly. Take it away, Karen.
Hi, Mark. I disagree with you about Andrew. He deserves all he's get. I don't care how haunted he looks. What about the girls and the children that were trafficked? How haunted are they? The girls and the boys that were abused, how haunted are they? I mean, this man comes from privileged position and you feel sorry for him. I don't care how dark his place gets, because some of those children never left that place. I'm getting sick and tired of hearing about Andrew. Look over here, but don't look over there. This is a distraction, and I'm sick of it, and I'm tired of it. He's a privileged man, an arrogant man, and he deserves all he gets.
Karen, I cannot tell you how grateful I am for your voice note. First, because of the passion and your articulacy and your humanity as well. And, you know, you're right. At the heart of this, as Kate said, are the alleged victims. And this show's all about opinions, and you don't agree, and that's why you're so welcome. And keep those opinions coming, Karen, and everyone else as well. I would say overall, most people want to move on from the Andrew story. And in tomorrow's show, we will do that, because I'm going to be looking at reforms, plans for power in a special Dolan's dispatch tomorrow. Can we have a quick look at a bit of a mini scandal surrounding the Chagos Islands surrender, as some would frame it, Kate? And this is front page of the Telegraph. Suggestions that John Healey, the Defence Secretary, misled the House of Commons and MPs in regard to a possible legal threat, imminent legal threat, if we don't relinquish these islands. The Tories are now saying that not true, that this is Project Fear. This Chagos deal, why is this a hill the Prime Minister is willing to die on, do you think?
I think the problem with this is that actually no one knows. So it's very complicated, this Chagos deal, in a way, because we're told it's awfully important. When Keir Starmer and the Foreign Office said they were going to be handing it over to Mauritius last year and you release it back at this big cost of over 100 million a year, they sort of muttered, well, it's very important we do this. You don't understand. There's big legal challenges. If we don't do this, we won't be able to run the Diego Garcia military base. We won't be able to kind of supply the islands. But no one's really understood why. No government minister, the Prime Minister, no official has been able to just simply and articulately explain why we have to give the islands back, why it's very important we pay money to them to lease them back.
Possibly 30 billion.
Exactly, over many years. And so actually that gives all this room for people to criticise the deal. And I think that if the government does really think this deal is necessary, they need to do a much better job of explaining it, because clearly Donald Trump doesn't think it is. And it's got a lot of opposition in the country and, of course, among Chagosians themselves. So I think the problem here is that actually no one can explain why that deal is a good or necessary deal.
Did the Prime Minister's decision not to allow the US to use UK air bases to launch a strike on Iran surprise you? Did that raise an eyebrow, or does that seem fitting with the mood of this government in relation to Washington these days?
I was surprised when I first read that story, because I just thought that our military, our security services are just so enmeshed that it seemed that I was surprised about that decision. And that often we've had that armada growing around the Middle East, and we're actually on very high alert over the next week, 2 weeks, to see whether or not Donald Trump does go in and do a bombing campaign. Look, when you read into that story a bit more, it does sound like there's kind of legal technicalities around it, and that previous administrations have also had that same concern. But I was, at first sight, surprised.
Well, exactly. It is a fascinating one. It's perhaps an unwelcome narrative that could be peddled in relation to the Prime Minister, which is somehow that he's tearing up the special relationship by not offering America a military blank cheque, which has been pretty much British foreign policy since the war.
Yeah, exactly. So I think there's this feeling with Keir Starmer that he hides behind process with everything, and that with Chagos, that's probably the most obvious example, he's talking about the need to comply with an international court ruling, an international court ruling where a Chinese judge sat and did the ruling, where, it's just a real grey area about what bits of international law are actually seriously binding and what basically is a choice. All international law is a choice for sovereign states to sign up to. And so, as I say, particularly with the Chagos deal, to be honest, no one really understands why the PM thinks it's so important. And so all we see is, well, why are you risking our really close special relationship with the US? Why are you risking infuriating Donald Trump by picking this hill to die on?
Most definitely. What is your appraisal of the health of this administration at the moment? A little bit of economic good news for Rachel Reeves, more fiscal headroom than anticipated. Tax receipts were higher. Well, that's because we're paying more tax.
Yeah, I know.
But still good news.
I guess good news for Rachel Reeves. I mean, not really good news for the rest of us. We're just that's just our money that's going in that delicious tax piggy bank. Yes, look, there is a respite. Why is there a respite? Well, partly this scandal rocking Andrew is chucking them off the front pages.
Yes.
Partly because it ratcheted up so much a couple of weeks ago, where Anna Sarwar, the Scottish Labour leader, came out and called for Keir Starmer to go. And at that point, he was really hanging on at number 10 by his fingertips. But Cabinet rode round and he survived. So I think when you stare over the precipice, when it boils over so much, you do have a respite until it boils over again. And what are the landmines ahead? We've got the Gorton by-election at the end of the month and then we've got the May local election.
Well, I'm so glad you mentioned that. Let me know when you've got to run, by the way, because we know you're up against it because you've got to get tomorrow's paper done. But quickly, how's it looking in Gorton and Denton? Is it heading towards the Greens at the moment?
Gosh, I've got Gorton. It's so hard with by-elections, right? Because usually hardly anyone turns out to vote, and no pollster actually really carries out polls. So you might as well just go up there, put your finger in the wind. It's a three-way dust-up: Labour, Greens and Reform. Reform quite fancy it. Zap Polanski's busy tweeting that the Greens are in the lead, and he's saying that tactical voting websites now are saying if you don't want Reform to get in, you should vote Green. Honestly, I think it's going to be a nail-biter, and we'll have to see.
So you're essentially that you're hearing there is basically no word on the street about which way it's going.
No, we did a big.
No one knows.
We did a big call round of pollsters, and no one knows because you get such low turnout, and it's there's three parties in it.
Some people are suggesting that maybe Reform messed up with their candidate because he could not be identified directly with that community.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, often with by-elections, you find parties actually pick a local because, whether or not you live in the area, if you have ties in the area, if your kids go to school in the area, that suddenly matters in a by-election. Doesn't really matter that much in a general election. Matthew Goodwin, I think he's knocked about Manchester a bit, but he's not from the area. So some concern about their choice of candidate there. And I have to say, I kind of thought that Reform were going to be going out trying to pick local kind of businessmen, businesswomen, trying to be a bit more kind of rank and file about some of their candidates. And I wonder if they don't win this time, if that's the lesson they take from this by-election.
And before I let you go, what were your sort of headline thoughts about the unveiling of Reform's, and I quote, shadow cabinet?
Oh, shadow cabinet. Oh, I thought that was good fun. I mean, I know people can be a bit kind of, well, they're not really the shadow cabinet because they're not the official opposition. But I think actually what Reform are doing is they're making the most of their team. So Nigel, who has got all the kind of fanfare and fun of politics at the moment, he's starting to so he's appointed people to those key positions. That's really crucial because they need to start developing their policy. They need to start attacking not just on borders but also on things like the economy, which is what he's put Robert Jenrick in to do.
Yeah.
But I'm also all in favour of politicians who, make a big deal out of their decisions and get us excited about some of the views and decisions they're doing. So I think Nigel is actually quite right to make a thing out of these appointments rather than just kind of dole them out quietly.
Most definitely. Listen, I am, focused on the needs of my viewers and listeners, right? That's not just part of the show, that is the show. And you're the same about your readers. And a lot of my viewers and listeners are sick of the Andrew story and they want to talk about the grooming gangs and about the economy and about open borders and all the rest of it. And I'm sure you feel the same way. The problem I've got, looking at The Sun, which is my favourite newspaper, I'm going through it and I've got to get to 8 pages of Andrew before I get to some other politics. But the politics will prevail, won't it? This is going to simmer down and we can get back to our day job of worrying about the government and the opposition.
Yeah, I mean, for those who are kind of yearning for more politics, we've got a big spread in the paper tomorrow. We've got a big interview, which will be talking not about Andrew, but about other matters and not from the government. So, I mean, if they want to kind of get to grips with some meaty politics, we've got a big interview tomorrow, which is much more about children, education and some of those cultural issues that people feel very incensed about.
Oh, well, that sounds brilliant. And may I thank the political editor of The Sun on Sunday, Kate Ferguson, who's obviously sitting on a very, very big double-page spread in tomorrow's paper. Kate, I'll let you get back to it. Thank you so much for joining us. Let me give you the full list of candidates standing in the Gorton and Denton by-election. I love this because then I get to be like Dimbleby or someone like that. Sir Oinkalot, Official Monster Raving Loony Party, Nick Buckley, Advance UK, Charlotte Cadden, Conservative Unionist Party, Dan Clark, Libertarian Party, Matt Goodwin, Reform UK, Sebastian Moore, SDP, Social Democratic Party, Joseph Omicha, Rejoin EU, Jackie Piercy, Liberal Democrats, Hannah Spencer, Green Party, Angelica Stoja, Labour, Hugo Wills, Communist League Election Campaign. Talk Breakfast, it is 9:39, more to come.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk Breakfast. Mark Dolan with you until 10 a.m. Then the brilliant Peter Cardwell takes over. And I'm delighted to say the problem with telly and radio, and I've been in it for 25 years, is it's all so fake and manufactured. And they try to engineer the narrative. Here we are on Talk. We're live. I've just run in from the control room where I'm having a gossip with Ryan and Dave. And Dave has had to ask me to put my microphone on. I couldn't find it. So, you know, that is the magic of Talk. It's real, just like real life. I'll tell you who's also real is Neil Parish, former Conservative MP, former chairman of the Environment, Food and Rural Affairs Select Committee, and a farmer. Neil, top of the morning.
Good morning. Yes, I've been out and fed the calves and the cattle. I got in and I've just been eating my porridge while I've been waiting to come on and talk to you, Mark. So good morning. Nice to see you.
Well, it's really good to see you. It's been a long time. And my viewers and listeners, Neil, are sick of the Andrew story. They want to talk about the problems facing this country. Open borders, high energy bills, sticky inflation, zero growth, the highest youth unemployment in Europe. And who could blame them?
That's absolutely right. And of course, I mean, what we've got to remember now with the Andrew story is that it's the monarchy that is the important thing. A constitutional monarchy. We have a good sound king and queen. You know, Princess Anne. We have Duke of Edinburgh and Sophie. All very hardworking,
brilliant people.
And it's just a shame that this Andrew thing just goes on. And of course, the trouble is, you know, guilty or not guilty, there's so much out there. And of course, it's a media frenzy. They love it. And of course, it's a royal and they dig and dig and dig. And the trouble is, it's terrible for the victims. And don't get me wrong. But of course, it's also, I mean, it's interesting for Andrew, his family, for his daughters, for his grandchildren. I feel for them also. And of course, the king, you know, it is his brother after all. You know, I think sometimes we forget when we're dealing with royalty that they are a family at the end of the day. And I would not want to have to be, you know, if it was my brother, very difficult to deal with. But I think the king's dealt with it in the right way. He's letting the police naturally investigate as they should. And no privileges are being maintained to Andrew. And I think we do need to let this bide now, as the Somerset word would be, let it bide.
Yeah.
Let's see what comes out of the police investigation. Then, yes, you can have legislation through Parliament to stop him from succession. But, I mean, the chances of him getting to succession at number 8 is pretty slim, to say the least. I hope that we don't lose that many royals and young ones as well.
Well, that's right. We know they're not allowed to travel together. And, of course, this will be, I agree with my audience, you know, this is a wonderful distraction for Starmer, who's not being interrogated as to why he's handing over sovereign British territory, who's not being interrogated over zero growth, which is an effective recession per head of population, the highest youth unemployment in Europe. I mean, this government's got big problems, hasn't it, Neil?
It really has, you see, because the youth unemployment, it's very laudable to try and push the minimum wage up more and more. But the trouble is, if you push it up to a degree that you don't take on youngsters, and you've got 16-17% youth unemployment, and now the government's sort of trying to come up with some sort of complex scheme to pay people to employ young people. Well, just make it a little bit cheaper to employ them in the first place, and then you'll take them on, and then most decent employers, if they're good, they pay them some extra money. And of course, the other thing is, Mark, is there's all this employment law that's coming in. Can you dismiss people? You don't want to dismiss them out of hand, but do you want to not have that option when you're taking somebody in, you know, taking them on which you've never taken on before? I mean, I would be terrified, to be putting it bluntly now. Luckily on my farm, I run it myself, and then I bring in contractors. If you had to bring in somebody now, fine if they were okay, But if they weren't, would you take the risk, you see? And this is what is happening with employers, especially the smaller ones. It's all right with the bigger ones where they've got all their departments to look after any problems with staff. But if you're a one or two man band, you will not want to take the risk. And this government really has messed up. I always remember saying, Mark, many moons ago when they came in and she started her budget putting up national insurance and doing all the things she did, the Chancellor, I said, well, she's either got a new form of economics that I know nothing about, or this will be a disaster. Well, unfortunately, it's a disaster. But it's not only a disaster for this government, it's a disaster for this country, because we are a great country and we're working people and we want to get on with life, and we've got entrepreneurs that want to create business. And the trouble is, this government is not creating the right place for entrepreneurs, and the trouble is we'll start losing them. We already have, and that's a real problem.
It's devastating. Rich people leaving the country is very bad news for my viewers and listeners, because we're the ones that have to cover the tax intake for which they were previously responsible. It's quite devastating. Neil, you're out of the Commons now. You're working on a farm. You can be super honest. You're not partisan. You know Keir Starmer. Are you surprised by how badly he's doing the job?
Yes, I am, actually, because I didn't dislike the man personally. I knew him. I had several conversations with him where our offices were not that far apart when I was in the House of Commons. I don't dislike the man personally. He has not got he's just not a politician, and he hasn't got the sort of guts really to see things through. And I think the trouble is he's a lawyer, and I think he weighs up everything, the pros and the cons. Rather, I think as a politician, you've got to have that gut feeling that drives you forward and drives you on. Sometimes, not always in the most popular way, but you stick to it. The problem that Starmer's got now, you see, I mean, last year wasn't going to have ID cards, weren't we? He nailed his colours firmly to the mast, only for that ship to sink, and he'll then find another ship with a mast and stick something else on it. But every time you see him, don't you, you say, well, will that last? And all of these things, the Mandelson affair and all of this is a very bad judgment. And he just, and then, oh, well, my special advisors. Well, I'm sorry, there comes a time when it's not just your special advisors, it's you. And I'm afraid that's the trouble with Starmer. He hasn't made it, has he? And he won't make it. And you see, he's off the hook, as you say, for a while. But of course, you've got the by-election coming up, as you were talking about just now, which either probably the Greens or Reform will win. I very much doubt whether Labour will hold it. Then you've got local elections, which the Labour Party did their best to stop because they didn't want elections, dare I say it. And so I think, this is... He's had a bit of a respite, as you quite rightly say, but I don't think he can sleep terribly easy in his political bed at the moment.
Is Starmer out of his depth?
I think perhaps he is. I think he, because he's such a process man, because, you see, in a way, Boris didn't do enough detail, and Starmer and Rishi Sunak was also sort of liable to this, do too much detail, and he ties himself up, Starmer, in so much sort of thought process that he then sort of decides he's not going to do something and backtracks, but he hasn't got a plan, has he? And I think, I'm naturally still talking about agriculture and environment,
yeah.
And I say, well, if they had a plan, this government, even if I disagreed with it, I would be happier. They haven't got plans for him very much, have they? And Rachel Reeves sort of bounces along, hoping the economy might improve. Naturally, you've had more money in this month because you've got all the tax coming in the beginning of the year. That's no big deal, but the borrowing overall is going up all the time. So now I think Starmer, I think the skids are under him. It's not a case of if, it's when. The trouble is, you see, if you look back, and you wanted me to be honest, if you look back at the replacing of the leaders of the Tory party, we never really improved in the opinion polls every time we changed a leader, you see. So I'm not convinced that the Labour Party changing Starmer will suddenly make them popular. You see, they only got elected on a third of the vote, and then they lost nearly half of that once they got into power. So they're on about sort of 17, 20% in the polls now. Well, I mean, that's an appalling place to be. And you see, I just don't see a recovery. Andy Burnham might have been, a bit more interesting. They stopped him standing in the by-election. Starmer, Starmer's way of hanging on to power is see off anybody who might come after me. But I think that's a weakness. What you've got to do is embrace your opponents and your competition and love them to death. But he's not capable of that.
Neil, we've missed your dulcet tones on the radio and television airwaves. Let's speak soon. Neil Parish there, former chairman of the Environmental, Food and Rural Affairs Select Committee, farmer and ex-Tory MP. Your calls next.
Breaking news in the last couple of moments. Extraordinary news. The police have arrested Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. It's his 66th birthday today. What a birthday present that is.
Mr. Mandarin, how long do you think that you can stay on the island?
We're going to stay forever. Our rights have to be respected now. We're going to stay.
Do you expect Jeremy Clarkson to become a part of your new party?
I can tell you, if Jeremy Clarkson decided to darken my doorstep, I would be absolutely delighted.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, it's 9:54 on Talk Breakfast, and on tomorrow's show, we're going to do a Dolan's Dispatch about politics and about whether Nigel Farage is the man that saves Britain. And we're going to talk about Keir Starmer, and we're going to talk about interest rates and inflation. We're going to talk about unemployment, highest in Europe for young people. We're going to talk about zero growth. We're going to talk about open borders. We're going to talk about the Pakistani Muslim rape gangs, because that is what we are here to do. So, yeah, we're going to keep a close eye on the Andrew story, but it's time to get back to the key business of what is going wrong with this country. 9:54 Talk Breakfast. I will say that David wants to talk about Andrew. And David, you're the boss, so take it away.
Oh, thank you, Mark. Thanks for taking the call.
Pleasure.
I've been listening all morning, and I've been slightly perplexed, really.
Yeah.
You know, with this sort of line that innocent until proven guilty. And I'm thinking, well, yes, in a court of law, that is exactly right. However, he hasn't been to court yet. He had his chance to go over to the States. And he could have proved himself over there, but instead paid £12 million. Now, 12 million quid is not 12 quid or 120 quid or £1,200. It's a lot of money.
It is.
Right? his wife has also been sponging and receiving money for years from Epstein.
Correct.
And Andrew has been selling trade secrets to Epstein.
Obviously, allegedly, and he denies the allegations. But yes, David, if that's your view, you're entitled to your view.
And I think there are emails out there that actually prove that he, was forwarding sensitive information.
There's a paper trail, isn't there, David?
Absolutely. And so this empathy for Andrew, I don't get it. I get the human aspect of it. Yes, of course, nobody wants to go through that. But 12 million quid, that's a nice get out of jail card. And it's a lot of money. Most people don't earn 12 million quid in 4 lifetimes, And so this is what I'm trying to say. I'm slightly confused as to why we should feel empathy or sorrow for this entitled, arrogant man. That's my question to you.
David, I appreciate the call and I appreciate the feedback, because my view on Andrew is I'm worried about him because I think that he's a safeguarding risk. But I also hear what you're saying. How can you be empathetic? He could have defended his record in a US court when faced with those accusations around Virginia Giuffre. And as David said, instead, he gets the Queen to write a cheque for 12 million, which from David's point of view is tantamount to an admission of guilt. Now, of course, I will legally have to stress he denies the allegations. David, thank you for an excellent call. Andy is in Devon in the southwest. Lucky you. Morning, Andy.
Morning, Mark. How you doing?
I'm very well. What's happening in Devon? Is it overcast today?
Badly, yes.
Yeah. Is there a drop of rain? Is there a touch of moisture in the air?
No, not too bad. Just overcast.
Now, Andy, a lot of people are sick of the Andrew story and they want to talk about what is affecting this country, which is the economy, the open borders, and essentially, a country in decline. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think some people have mentioned that the Andrew situation is manna from heaven for Mr. Starmer. It's taken him away from what we really need to talk about. I'd like to think that they are politically expedient enough to do the right thing, but they seem to be taking advantage of this situation. The timing particularly, I can't believe that they didn't know what they need to know before the Epstein 3 million pages were released. And I want to talk about the process because he's just a normal guy like we are now. He's had his privilege removed somewhat. Yeah. And he's still under the auspices of his brother's protection, but